real estate people. My gosh, unruly people. Hey, I got a quick note from Frank for the
Some of them don't know who Frank is.
for the Remax Lake of the Ozarks folks. So Frank is still in Florida, but I just want you to know, and I tell you this occasionally, but I want you to know how often Frank thinks about all of us and how often he watches. And we're so thankful that we haven't screwed up too bad, and the reason we haven't screwed up too bad is because of all of you. But Frank sent an email last night, and he said, first of all, congratulations to each and every one of you for the exceptional award of #1 worldwide transactions and #1 worldwide in volume. These awards could not be possible without the awesome performance from each and every one of you. I can't stop thinking about the enormous reality of these awards. There are thousands of RE/MAX offices that you were competing with, and you outperformed every one of them. Please do not take this for granted just because the office has won #1 in transactions in the past. By adding #1 in volume, you are proving that you continue to push the limits on production. Because of your hard work, professionalism, and continued training, you guys prove that you are not only the best at the lake, but the best in the world. I could not be more proud of you. Your raving fan, Frank.
No.
And so if you shoot him a text or something or send him an email, it's just really cool because you're never out of his mind. I never tell you, but he asks specific questions about lots of you all the time. So anyway, I wanted to share that. And we're excited for today, but I wanted to tell you, it's also pretty exciting to see what you've done already this year. So these are the monthly reports that we share at our meetings, and these are on the back page of the newsletter. So you can use these stats to your advantage because, you know, everything we put out, we want you to be able to use to your advantage. So, you know, last year was a pretty awesome year, pretty exciting year. I don't think anybody will argue that. But I just had two things to share with you. Last year in January, you all did 87 ends. This year, 130. Last year, in February, you did 91 ends. This year, 141. And here's one more stat that I just want to share off this. You might get sick of us sometimes from a stat standpoint, but you can really use these. So our double ends, something happened with your double ends. And I think that we need to think about this and focus on it, use it for our listing conversions as well. Last year in January, you had 34 double ends. This year, 72. Last year in February, 38. This year, 62. So that's a big deal.
And it's in direct correlation to what we're going to be talking about today. You control the listings, especially in a market like this, you control the buyers. So this class is going to be one of the most important classes we have all year, so I'm excited about that.
We're also excited that we got Wayne hooked up for 4 times this year. So, you know, sometimes it's good for us to get out of our box, and that's what he brings us. He has exposure all over the country, and you know, when you have that type of exposure, you get out of your box. So it's just exciting to have him here, but the only reason he's here is because of our sponsors. So we want to give these guys just a few minutes to talk about.
We talk
themselves.
a lot about building our team. You know, you talk a lot about building your team in real estate, and that includes great lenders, that includes great insurance guys, title companies, attorneys, whatever it is. When you think about building your team, it's not just the people that you do real estate with, it's the people that take care of your clients, the people that are going to touch your clients. And we are so blessed to be able to have people like Marcus and Michelle and Michael to make sure that they're taking care of our clients. They do a fantastic job, and so we just want to say thank you, seriously thank you guys for being a part of this. So you guys want to?
Sure. We're Michael and Michelle Lassen with First State Bank Mortgage. We've been in this industry almost 21 years. It's crazy We have never seen a market like we have the last year, and it's not slowing down, so keep at it. We're here to help you guys. We have a great online program. YourLakeLoan.com is awesome for your clients. They can do everything from apply, upload their documents securely, sign all their disclosures, sign their closing disclosure, and we're getting really close to doing electronic closings where they'll go to closing and maybe sign 5 documents in person. So we're getting to that point where it's not gonna take an hour to do your closing. It's gonna take maybe 10 minutes. So you're in and out, and your buyers are enjoying their new property. So if we can help you guys at all, please don't hesitate. Even if we're not your lender and you have a question about a deal that you just don't think is right or you don't understand, call us. We're here to help you learn and work with you and your buyers to get anything done. So, you know, we do have some cool stuff if you guys want to come up anytime during the day. Just some little goodies. Everybody's on their cell phone, their laptop, their iPads. These are magic cleaners. I discovered this last week at the boat show. It hooks to the back of your phone. You peel it off, you clean your phone, and you slap it back on your phone.
Sweet.
So, it's awesome.
It's pretty neat.
And then with everybody working on their laptops from home, your little camera needs to be protected. So it's a cute little thing you can just stick on your laptop camera, and it slides open and close. So if you don't want them seeing you without having your makeup or hair done, shut that camera off. Or if somebody happens to get into your computer, you don't want them seeing anything. So just some little goodies and pads and paper, and just call us if you guys need anything. Thank you for letting us help you guys.
You guys all know Marcus?
Hello, most of you are neighbors, right? So we're all neighbors, so it's wonderful. More than anything, I just want to also too congratulate you on your success. And what's really interesting about this and what you're doing here is I've seen a lot of successful people in all kinds of different lines, and one of the key components and the foundation of being successful is constantly sharpening your saw, reinventing yourself, getting better, and it's never good enough. And that's what you're doing here, and I applaud you for that. Michelle, thanks for letting me realize I need to step up my swag game. That's pretty impressive over there. I gotta be honest with you, I might steal some of that myself. But anyways, in all seriousness, kind of like what Jason was saying, I'd love to be the advocate of your referral. I'd love to be the advocate for you. I'm asking for a seat at the table for anything that we can do. And also know that if anything comes into our office, so 25% of the country is State Farm insured, so 1 in 4 opportunities, probably everybody you talk to already has State Farm. It's gonna be a natural, easy progression for us. But it doesn't stop with us. If we get somebody and we can't help them, regardless of what the scenario is, I want you to understand we will carry that torch for you. So it's wonderful to see everybody, and it's so great to see your success. Congratulations to you all, and thanks for letting us be a part of it.
What I appreciate about you guys is that we are constantly talking about getting out of our own box. You know, a lot of us have been in this market for a long time, so it's not an easy thing to do. It doesn't come naturally to accept the changes that are happening today. You guys understand the changes, and you're in tune with the urgency that needs to take place. And we talk about that. We talked about that most of the morning before we started this. So the fact that you're on board with that and you're responsive, and we appreciate you guys. So thank you for doing this for us. Now,
We got somebody special here. Real special. I don't know if you guys know how. First off, we got a birthday boy in the house. Are you 31?
31 plus 28.
31, but you look good. You look good. Birthday yesterday. Thanks for sharing your birthday with us. But even a bigger deal than that, he is just got inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. That is a huge deal. So congratulations on that.
I think we got a few of those people in the room now. Wayne's in there. Yeah. Jason's in there. Yeah. Jennifer's in there. Pretty cool.
You'll hear about Wayne's golf career a little bit. He intertwines it, which is awesome. Anytime you can take what you do in your life and intertwine it into business is always so powerful. And 6-time amateur state champion. That is unbelievably impressive. And so he does a fantastic job. Most of you guys were here First time he spoke last year, and we are pumped, as Jeff said. We got him 4 times this year. So, and what he's talking about today, so relevant.
Couldn't be more important.
Yep.
All right, Wayne, it's all
Get out of
yours.
your way.
Wow, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be anywhere, actually, not on a Zoom meeting. How many of you are tired of Zoom?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you're doing more than 20 hours a week on Zoom. Thank you. Yeah, things are different, right? Things are different in the real estate business. How many people feel like, even as good as the market is, this is kind of stressful, this real estate market that we're in, right? Almost like it's too good, right? And we kind of went through this, that it was stressful in the beginning if you had buyers, but it really wasn't that stressful if you had listings. Now it seems to be kind of stressful even when you have listings, right? Navigating the multiple offers and all of those things that happen, right? When do you think it's going to stop? Do you think it's ever going to stop? This is the participation part, right? No, seriously, I mean, how much longer do you think the market will stay like this? Give me your
Everything
thoughts,
comes to an
seriously.
end
2 to 4 years.
2 to 4 more years,
or mutates.
okay? So what are we gonna do? Is it gonna be a tinderbox for 2 to 4 more years? Are we gonna see even more realtors keep jumping into the marketplace? For those of you that don't know, how many people have heard me before? Oh God, I gotta have news stories. Okay. So I live in Springfield, Missouri, right? Hour and a half down the road. Let's see. A year ago in Springfield, there were 4,000 pieces of property on the market. There were 2,000 real estate agents in Springfield. Today, there are 1,200 pieces of property on the market, and there are 2,500 realtors now in Springfield. There are more realtors per capita in Springfield, Missouri than any place I have traveled. And that creates this just weirdness that we have going on in the market, okay? What we're gonna talk about today is listing presentations. It is my favorite thing to talk about, okay? Because becoming a listing agent years ago literally changed my life, okay? Getting on the listing side of the equation is the ultimate leverage in real estate. Okay, there is not a bigger leverage point for a realtor than being on the listing side of the equation on a regular basis. If you want to try to control your time at all as a realtor, you have to learn to get to the listing side of the equation. Here's the deal. Doesn't happen naturally, right? It's not like, well, I figure after I do this for like 10 years, I'll become a good listing agent. No, there's people who've been doing this 10 years, it's still a horrible listing agent. And don't do a lot of volume on the listing side. Becoming a great listing agent is a decision that you make, right? It is digging deeply into the process, and it is standardizing what your strategy is. Because at the end of the day, as real estate agents, I believe you get paid for strategy and communication, and that's it. All the rest of this is fluff, it's add-ons, it's whatever. We get paid for strategy, especially in a competitive environment, right? Now, I won't go through the whole long sordid tale other than to tell you, I got in the real estate business in 1985, right out of college. Unlike most people, this was my only career. For a lot of us in the room, this was our second career, right? We did something else first and then we got into real estate. I did it right out of college. Totally floundered for 4 years. My wife told me I had to go find a real job. We just had our first child, and she's like, dude, this is not working. You make no money. You are never home. You're always stressed out. You're not fun to be around. And we have a kid, and you're gonna have to go find a real job. And lucky for me, at that point in time, our independent company joined RE/MAX. And I went to Branson, Missouri to Roy Clark's Grand Hotel or whatever it was for my first mid-states meeting back in the day. And I came home that night and I looked at my wife and I said, I think I can do this. They've exposed me to things that I didn't know existed. And so I went back the next day and I came home that night and she goes, all right, what are you gonna do? And I said, give me 12 months. just please give me 12 months to figure this out, because I think I can do this. I set a goal to make $100,000. Because back then, that was the biggest club level RE/MAX had, was the 100% level, right? And I set out to try to run my real estate career instead of it running me. I was just talking to Kayla earlier about this. I do not believe personally that there is a direct correlation between the number of hours that you work as a realtor and the amount of money that you make. And yet as an industry, we think that's like this hardwired connection, that I can't make a lot of money unless I work like 9,000 hours a week or whatever. I just don't believe that. I think there's a lot of things that go on in our industry. So I set 3 rules for myself. At 27 years old, I said I'm not gonna work weekends, I'm not gonna do open houses, and nobody's gonna call me at home. That was before cell phones. So the only way you found a realtor was you either called the office or you called them home. And the seasoned veteran said you can't do that because the customer expects it. I said, then I'll quit, because this existence that I'm living is horrible. I made $100,000 by June. I set another goal to make another $100,000, and I made $92,000. I made more money in December of that year than I'd made the whole previous year. Could I have done it at 22 or 3? Absolutely. I just hadn't made the decision that I was gonna do it. So the beautiful part about real estate sales is you're your own boss, right? Worst part about real estate sales, you're your own boss. About 45 ways for you to generate business. Fall into 3 buckets. That's another session that I'll do at some point. You're never gonna master all 45, so stop trying. Pick the 2 or 3 things that are in tune with you, that you enjoy, the parts of this business you like, and crush them. Because when you interview, and I'm lucky, I get to work with some really cool people across the country. To a person, they're all doing 2 or 3 things very, very well, and kind of ignoring everything else. They live in their sweet spot, right? The name of my company is See the Field Consulting. That comes from the movie Bagger Vance, because I'm a golfer. And at one point in the movie, it's the line of the movie is, I think it's time. And Matt Damon looks at Will Smith and says, time for what? And Will Smith says, I think it's time for you to see the field. Because if you saw the field, you wouldn't be hacking at that ball like you were chopping weeds out from under the porch. But you go ahead, you hack away. And that resonated with me. That resonates with me today with our industry, right? Is that so many people are so stressed out doing all of these things, operating from fear versus abundance. I mean, all of those things that we read about and then have a hard time putting in, okay? What I'm going to talk to you about today is listing presentations. It's a sexy title, the ultimate listing presentation. What I would tell you is, what I'm going to lay out for you today, you're doing. You're already doing it. When you have a great relationship with a seller, that then they are very happy with what happened and they turn into a huge referral source for you, you did this. I'm just going to lay out kind of a pattern to try to get you there more often. It's a presentation that we know works. It's a presentation that works in a competitive environment. And by the way, whether you believe it or not, you are competing every single solitary day, even though it may not be mentioned. You're competing against faceless things. All you have to do is turn on television in the morning, and you'll see an ad every morning for Ideal Agent. How many people have seen the Ideal Agent ad on early in the morning? I get up really early. Ideal Agent. Testimonials from people. Best part was they saved $12,000. Call us now, Ideal Agent. And what they're doing is they're getting between you and your clients, right? This was the Zillow play. This is Trulia. This is Home Life. This is Op City. This is Ojo. This is Ylopo. These are all these people that have seen how much money realtors make, right? And they're trying to get between you and your clients. And what's ended up happening to us is, absent us really upgrading the one thing that only you can do, which is a great conversation with your client. Commission dollars, their goal is to erode commission dollars, and if they can't erode them, they at least want to slice off pieces of all of them along the way. So I think it's a real rallying cry for the industry. We got to up our game in a big, big way, okay? So Having said that, there you go. That was empowering, wasn't it? Okay. All right, why did I do this? Well, there's a few reasons. Number one, because of what goes on now online, right? Today's buyer's incredibly well informed, right? But still, sellers rely on us, you, for their information, okay? Accurate information is still agent-driven and is massively lacking in the marketplace. Number two, many agents are unable to explain the forces driving today's market, because there are new forces that drive this thing now, and are subject to an erosion of their value proposition and ultimately their commission dollar. I'm seeing it in other parts of the country. I mean, listing inventory is so low, agents are just walking in going, I'll do it right now for regular minus X. Because I got to get a listing. I got to get some kind of fuel for my business. Agent value is no longer information. It's now interpretation of the information the consumer already has. They've already researched everything before you get there, guys. Right? We figured, we know this, right? I mean, back in the day, well, I've been doing this 36 years. 36 years I've been in this game. How many people have been in the business as long as I have? Me and Jane, okay. 36 years ago, you had a multi-list book, came out every 2 weeks. It had a singular black and white picture of a listing with cryptic realtor stuff down below. There were 9 black and white pictures to a page. And across the front of the book it said confidential for realtor use only. We had the info, you couldn't get it. You had to come to one of us to get the information, right? Now, that's not the game anymore, right? Used to, when you had a buyer, the first meeting with a buyer was like, well, what do you want? Well, I think I want this and that. Okay, let me see what I can find you. That game's over, right? Now it's like, I want to see this house, and this house, and I already know what they paid for it, and all of those things, right? Okay. Individual agents no longer control the information, so we have to control the inventory. We have to control the listing inventory. And then there's iBuyers, right? There's iBuyer programs, the Zillow iBuyer program. Y'all are familiar with iBuyers, right? Probably not here, not really in our market as of yet. So Zillow, they'll buy your house, right? This used to be the ogre-looking guy, we buy ugly houses thing, right? And now Zillow has come out with their iBuyer program. They'll buy your house, right? Now to me, the Zillow iBuyer program is 2 things. Number one, it's nothing more than the age-old proposition that a lot of us used and still use, which is if I can't sell your house, I'll buy it, right? All Zillow did was flip it on its head and say, we'll buy your house, and if you don't like our price, oh, by the way, we now have a listing lead that we can sell back to real estate agents. So I think, my personal opinion is Zillow will always play in this game just enough to say they buy houses, but the real game is to create more leads to sell back to you guys. This is now the playing field. Real estate agents in the middle of a major disruption from third parties. I think you need to be worried about third parties, right? Not worried like laying awake at night. Worried from the standpoint, I gotta up my game, right? Here's just some comments from people. The brokerage community in general is the lowest hanging fruit for disruption within tech, and that's why you're seeing these big investments. Real estate agents have the least moat around them. They're the most fragmented market, and there have been a number of innovations that have come out that have really disrupted them. This guy is a venture capitalist. And there's also this. At the lower end of the market, and even in the middle of the market, people are just not going to use real estate agents long term. These are venture capital people, VC guys, throwing a lot of money at things. They're coming after us, right? We are very late to this dance. I feel like I'm sucking the air out of this room right now. I'm gonna bring it back, don't worry. We are very late to this dance. It happened in insurance, right, Marcus? It's happened in insurance, it happened in travel, it happened in lending, it's happened everywhere. We were just late. Stockbrokers, We were just late to the dance. We were able to protect ourselves from this, okay? In all of those industries I just mentioned, the really talented people who understood the game are fine. They had to up their skill set. The stockbroker had to become the certified financial planner, right? In the insurance industry, you had to probably get more disciplined in not trying to chase all these different rabbits, right? We just need to get with the program, okay? Because this is the way the world is today. So issues that I think currently shape the market. Number one, we're on an 8-year run, okay? We're at the peak of this 8-year run that we have been on. So how many of you have been in the real estate business 8 years or less? Okay. This isn't normal. I'm gonna lay that out to you. This is not normal. And I would say that if you were in the market in 2008 and 9, those of us that remember those days, right? That was one extreme of the market. We are now at the other extreme of the market. 2008 and 9, everybody's like, I don't want any listings. They're horrible. They never sell. I want buyers. Now we, give our right arm for listings, right? And I think what happens to us is when we get to the extremes, things get exposed, right? I think as long as things are kind of normal, we can kind of not upgrade our skills and everything's good and I'm your buddy and all that. And now when you get to the extremes is the time when it's harder for people to make decisions, there's more stress, right? And it's exposing our industry. It's not exposing you guys. I think this is why your numbers are up, Jeff. Quite honestly, I think people are now at the extreme realizing, you know what, I need to hire people that really know what the heck they're doing. And the first time we saw this on the seller side was 2008 and 9, because that was the first time in US history, if you will, that people were like, oh my God, you can lose money on your personal house? That's a foreign concept. That never happened. You bought a house, you lived in it a few years, right? It went up in value, you sold it, and then you went and bought another house. I think a lot, okay? I'm a big thinker. Let me tell you how I think we got here. I think how we got into 08 and 09, and why I think we're here today. It's called the over 55 rollover rule. There you go. How many people remember the over 55 rollover rule? Anybody? It was tax law. The tax law used to be that on your personal home, if you sold your personal home, you had to spend $1 more than your net sale on your next home, or every home that you had ever owned retroactively became a taxable event. So equity in homes was sacred. You couldn't touch it without paying tax on it, okay? It's called the over 55 rollover rule. You could only do it one time in your life to sell a house and not have to pay taxes on all of your gains throughout from home number one. And the limit that you could put in your pocket was $250,000. That was tax law. That was changed during the Clinton administration. In the Clinton administration, you look at any commentary about Bill Clinton, one of the most robust economies, right? He really fixed this economy. A lot of how they did it was they got the equity out of houses flowing into the economy. That then turned your house into a piggy bank, because we all know what the tax rule is now, right? Personal home, every 2 years, you can take the money and shove it in your pocket. That's why now, and it doesn't happen, I don't think, here at the lake. I'm pretty sure it doesn't happen here at the lake. But in most markets nationally, you know what the average down payment is in the United States? What would you guess the average down payment in the U.S. is? 10%? 10%? 4%? 6%. Average down payment in the U.S. is 6%. Okay? Property last year nationwide brought 99% of listed price. It's probably over 100% now, right? The reason that property brings so close to full price, and this has been in play for a long time, and it's just a societal evolution of us as Americans, is because people really don't care how much they pay because it's all in payment. Now, you guys have a lot of cash deals here, right? And it's weird that in every market, all of a sudden people have figured out how to write cash offers. There's like this disproportionate amount of cash now. And I don't know whether people are just like writing cash offers figuring that they'll get the loan, or whether they're borrowing against other assets or whatever. So anyway, an 8-year run. We're a cyclical business. I've been through, I got in the real estate business in 1985. There was no fixed rate money, zero fixed. You couldn't get a fixed rate loan, there were none. Everyone danced in the streets at 10% fixed rate. You finally had fixed rate money. You were looking at 9 to 11% adjustables, 3-1 arms that started at 9, and you had to pay 2 points to get them. How many of you have never had a buyer have to pay a point? Because that went away, right? Just a completely different environment, right? Interestingly though, from a realtor perspective, we're still doing crap the same way we did it in the 1970s. We're relying on our friends, and we're not really that good at this, but I'm your buddy, come on, our kids play ball together, right? You got the NAR lawsuit. I will not wear you out with this because now it really is getting kind of depressing, but there is a huge lawsuit going on. There's a big lawsuit going on, and it's just attacking realtor commissions and attacking buyer agent fees and all of that. It's sorting its way through the courts right now. It's probably a 5 to 7 year run. NAR keeps trying to get it kicked out. Court keeps going, nah, we're not going to kick this out. Amazon is to shopping malls as I believe online is to the realtor community. So it was my birthday yesterday. I wanted a new pair of jeans. Got them on today. So I had to go to the mall. That's where the buckle is, and that's where I buy my jeans, this buckle. And I'm walking through the mall with my wife, and I'm like, wow. I go to the mall like twice a year, right? I'm like, wow, this is really depressing. You been to a mall lately? I mean, half the stores are gone, right? And my daughter was with us, and she goes, I go, this pandemic thing, she goes, Dad, this isn't a pandemic, this is called Amazon, right? And it's true, right? Why would I go to the mall for that weird experience that none of us really enjoyed when I can just go on Amazon? Right? Well, that is what online is to us. And interestingly, if you watch what's happened, with the growth of Amazon and the demise of malls, what has had a major resurgence, however? Boutique stores. Boutique stores. If you go to Springfield, right, there's the Battlefield Mall on one side of the street, and across the street there's a shopping center called Brentwood Center that is full of boutique stores, and they're killing it. You can't hardly find a parking place. And you go across the mall, it's just like this massive expanse of blacktop, right? So why is that? I believe it's because people still want a special experience. Malls never provided it, never had to. Now they're slow to this game that's hitting them. So I would tell all of you today, you have to work to provide a boutique experience for your client. So if you shop at a boutique store, you know that when you go in, number one, they know who you are. Number two, they remember probably the last few things that you've purchased there. Like I can go to Plaza Shoe Store today, which is on Brentwood Center, and if I walk in, there's one girl there that knows who I am. She knows the last 4 pairs of shoes I bought, what size I am, and everything. I always used to do it. Town and County was another one. Bob Lowe. I always used to tell people to have the Bob Lowe experience. You go into Town and County for a pair of socks, you will walk out with 4 pairs of socks, 3 shirts, couple slacks, 4 coats, and 8 ties. The guy is a master. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? That's where we have to go. And you guys are already doing it. I guarantee, I know you guys. You're already doing it. Just remember that as more and more of this online stuff keeps hitting people, you have to keep raising your bar. Because it's framing how they look at everything that you say. All right. The number of leads being generated is a huge issue. We'll just, real quick, you've probably seen these stats before. In 2011, there were 4.6 million real estate transactions in the United States. There were 4.5 million generated online leads. More transactions than online leads. 2018, last numbers I've seen, 5.5 million transactions, 89 million generated leads. Lead generation is not the issue. Lead conversion is the issue. Lead conversion has always been the issue in real estate. It's not sexy, it's not cool. It doesn't sell books and tapes at the back of the room because it's dialogue, it's conversation. I think the fact that we have all of this high-tech stuff, right? The closing that people are only going to have to go to, for 5 minutes, and everything else is online, right? That's great. It's awesome. But it's hard to stay someone's trusted advisor when everything we're doing is online. It's hard to enhance a customer experience when everything is online, right? I think we still have to realize that you got to sit down and talk to people. There's a food chain of communication to me, and it's probably because I'm old, but I think there's a food chain of communication. I think face-to-face still wins. I think we're seeing this coming out of the pandemic. People are like, I just want to be around people again, right? I think face-to-face is the best. I think Zoom is second. A video that you produce is third. A phone call perhaps is fourth. A voicemail is fifth. A text message is sixth. And an email is the last thing I want, really, in today's world. I want that human connection. And that human connection needs to have value to it. All right, the basic premise of today. Every listing in the marketplace, all 20 of them, or however many are out there right now. How many listings are in your market right now today? Do you guys know? Like 20?
How many listings? How many condos? 50?
Condo-
37? I mean, literally less than 50
Yeah.
condos.
Yeah, condos is 30 something right now.
Okay, 30 something at Lake of the Ozarks, period.
80 lakefront homes.
80, yeah.
And some of those condos aren't built yet.
Correct.
Yeah,
Some of those
so-
condos are not built.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
couple complexes.
And 90% of our business is done in residential and condos. And just waterfront, off water, and condos. And
How
that's
many
our,
agents?
There's more land for sale than there is everything else combined.
Yep.
Well, but here's the thing. What are you doing about it? See, I think that, what was the demise of stockbrokers? Mutual funds.
Yep.
Mutual funds were the demise of stockbrokers, the bad ones. Not saying there's anybody bad in the room, I don't mean it that way. Mutual funds were the demise of stockbrokers. They no longer had to start figuring out and really doing the research on what stocks you should buy if you went to them. They're like, I'll just throw you in a mutual fund. Multilist is our mutual fund, guys, right? If you're working with buyers and the extent of what you're doing with the buyer is you're gonna, well, let me see what comes up in Multilist, that's not good. There's a great book called The Blue Ocean Strategy. Anybody ever read The Blue Ocean Strategy? It says that every marketplace is made up of two oceans, the blue ocean and the red ocean. The red ocean is the known market. That's Multilist for us. And the red ocean is red for one simple reason, it's full of blood. Because everybody's fighting and battling and chewing each other up, fighting over the known market. When the premise of the book is that if you just stopped and looked over here, there's a blue ocean that nobody's in. And that's how you can leverage buyers. Okay, that's how you can leverage your buyers right now. I got some guys in Oklahoma City doing this, and it's working really well. You guys are probably already doing it as well. This goes into a whole other tangent that I didn't want to go into, but I'm going to do a session on this at some point, so I'll give you the cliff notes. You would not think of putting a sign in front of a house or a condo or whatever without a listing agreement, would you? I won't put a sign up until I get a listing agreement signed. Yep, people will work with buyers all day long without an agreement. Why is that?
They're
Because
afraid they're
there's
gonna
a
go
law
away.
that says you can't put a sign in front of a listing without an agreement. And there isn't a law that says you can't work with a buyer. And because of that, I think we're hesitant to spend dollars working with our buyers. So the buyer process becomes reaction in time, where the listing process becomes being proactive and spending money. And I believe, because I can do this, because I got the clicker, I think it's all because we don't have an agreement with people. And we've never really worked hard on, as an industry, on getting buyer agreements. And I think that creates the blue ocean. So Brian Woodward, I don't know if you know Woodward or not, he's in Oklahoma City, one of my clients. So we started a deal with his team that any buyer agent who has an agreement and very specifically knows what that buyer is looking for. Not just a part of town and bedrooms, not that cursory conversation we've been having. Like, they want this. Brian has started, they've crafted letters, and they're sending them out to those specific subdivisions, sometimes those specific streets. We have a buyer willing to pay this much money for this, this, and this. If you're contemplating a sale, please call us. They're getting called every week.
Wow.
So I had somebody in New Jersey tell me, they go, that'll never work. And I said, why not? And they go, well, everybody knows how hot the real estate market is. And you know, they're like, my Facebook feed is just filled with all this stuff about how hot the real estate market is. And I go, that's because we're realtors. All of our friends are realtors. The public knows the market's good. They don't know how crazy it is, do they? How many people still come up to you and go, hey, how's real estate? I hear it's pretty good, right? So you have to always look at leverage points. All right, I chased a rabbit. All listings are in one of three positions. Market value is here, and asking prices above market value, or market value and asking price are in harmony with each other, or market value and asking price is actually below market value. This was 2008 and 9, right? That was the marketplace we were in 2008 and 9. Somewhere in here is now really the marketplace that we're in, right? I mean, I think Jason and I were talking about this before we started. I think it's very important that you tell people what their property is worth on the front end. And then I don't know that I would walk out of a listing agreement if a seller wanted to take a run at it for a little bit. I think the important part has always been sharing with them what it's really worth, right? Because I'm sure you guys have seen this dynamic that I hear about playing out all over the country. That if we get asking price and market value to be the right number, we will see bidding wars, right? They'll bid this thing up higher. But if we miss it, it just sits. If we get too aggressive initially, it sits, right? Is that what you guys are seeing too? Okay. And then it's hard, and it's really freaky now as an agent, right? If we put something on the market and we don't have 40 people wanting to look at it in 24 hours, it's like, oh God, I screwed this up, right?
Yeah.
This is so bad. How am I gonna call this seller, right? It's stressful, it's just very stressful. So, the basic question always is, where's your current inventory? Now, granted, there's not a lot of inventory, but of the deals that you have, where are they on this scale, right? And in a normal market, I would tell people, and this was like less than a year ago I was having this conversation with people. If you have a listing that you know asking price is above market value, I think you have a duty to go have that conversation with the seller. I think you owe it to them to have the conversation and say, look, here's where we are, what do you want to do? Right? We get paid for options and strategy. That's what we get paid for, and our ability to communicate with people. I think there's certain rules to listing property. Number one, not about you. I mean, the stats are great, the awards are great, but when you go into that listing presentation, it's not about you, it's about them. This is their home. Okay? This is all about them. The conversation has to be 100% about them, what their goals are, and again, I would contend that y'all are having this conversation. When you have a great transaction with somebody, you had this conversation at some level. I'm just gonna today give you a format to try to get there more often. I'm really big on processes and keeping things the same. Number two, sellers don't mutate in the middle of a transaction. Neither do buyers. People don't get demanding in the middle of a transaction. They were demanding the day you met them. You just didn't know it. And you didn't have a process to pull out that under pressure, and there's a lot of pressure now, this was how they were going to react. Sellers absolutely have selective hearing and selective memory. They do not hear everything we say, and they certainly don't remember everything that we told them. I believe it's a two-step process. Now, this is dicey in this market, right? Well, I'm probably gonna shorten it up to one step maybe. I believe in a competitive environment, though, two steps wins. I learned this with expires. I changed my life calling expired listings. To put more weight on my, which there aren't any now, right? There's no expired. But that was it was a normal market back then, and that was how I changed my life. Was calling expired listings and developing a presentation that in a competitive environment, I statistically had a really good chance of winning. Okay, and it seemed to me what I discovered is that expired listings, on the first time, people don't really interview agents. Still, the national stat tells you they hire the first agent they talk to, but expireds were different. They would always talk to 2 or 3 people. And so I had to have, the lingo or whatever, and I found out 2 steps beat 1 step. That if I would go look at your house first and then run the numbers and then come back, my stock would go up. I don't know whether y'all are 2-step. What I'm gonna talk to you today is a 2-step process. And rule number 5, listing property is more competitive than it's ever been. Not necessarily with someone in your market, but just with all the online valuation things that are out there. Why do you want to be a listing agent? It's just leverage, and I know your sales prices are higher than $200,000, but this model is based on $200,000. If you sell a buyer a $200,000 house, you'll make $6,000, and absent a great past client program, you're done. But if you have a listing, it's leverage, right? You can leverage the listing. You can have a $200,000 sale and you're the listing agent and somebody else sells it. You can sell it yourself. By the way, question, when you were talking about the double sides, was that individual agent double sides or was that office double sides? Office double sides. If you don't put that in your listing presentation as a value proposition, you're missing the boat. That's huge. That's really what the public wants. The public wants to know that when I hire you, you actually have strategies for you or the people in your office to sell the house. Yeah, those are massive stats. Put those in your listing presentation or in your pre-listing packet, which we'll get into in a second. You could also take that seller out and sell them just another house. Same money, another $200,000 sale. And if we understood lead conversion, we should be able to pick up, for every listing we have, we should be able to pick up a lead and go sell them something else as well. So a total of $24,000. The truth is, if you want to be a listing agent, you got to master a listing presentation. I think there's 3 core competencies in our industry. Number 1 is a listing presentation. Number 2 is a buyer presentation. Number 3 is a valuation model. Until you have those things down pat, wrote, not having to think about them at all, the rest of this doesn't matter. Because those are the lead conversion strategies. The ability to list a house when I sit down with someone at the proper price, the ability to show value to a buyer, and the ability to figure out what something's worth, right? How many of you believe, as we sit here today, you're pretty well dialed in on what houses are worth in your market? Raise your hand. Well, that is a bad question in this market.
It's more than you think going in.
Yeah.
I'd say everybody a year ago knew what it was. Now we're not 100% sure.
I have a whole speech about not being sure.
What?
I have a whole speech when I go on a listing appointment about how in
The
the
numbers
old
say
days, we used to look at the sold comps to figure out what it was likely worth and then look
Yeah.
at the inventory and come up with the blah, blah, blah. Today, sold comps really don't mean a thing.
That's exactly right.
Your neighbor's house 6 months ago sold for $350. You just told me you really want to list at $400. Okay, because we'll probably get $400. We might get $450. I don't know.
I love you, Susan.
So we're in this environment now where you price literally based on active listings.
Yes,
Yes.
correct.
And we're getting to the point where even that might be flawed.
active and pendings are about the only thing to pay attention to.
Yeah, historical
Yeah.
sales don't matter. I agree.
It's
No, I agree.
crazy. It's just
I still think
honest.
you need to show them to people.
Yes.
I do.
But that's right. Right now, we're in this marketplace where pricing really is about active listing. A guy in Springfield, I talked to him last week, he decided he was just gonna try something. He had a house, he went out and did a CMA on it, and he said, man, best case scenario, sunshine and birds singing, it's a 120s. I mean, that's it, it's a $120,000 house. He convinced the seller to list it for $99,900. He'd been wanting to try this, right? Just intentionally underprice it and just let it go and see what happens. Sold it for $140.
Yeah.
Okay? And I go, so are you gonna do that moving forward? He goes, no, I will never do this again. He's like, no, I've done it. I can check the box. I say I tried it. He said it was horrible. He said it was a horrible experience for me trying to navigate all of these offers, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Just please understand, and those of us that have been around for a long time, it's cyclical, right, Jane? I mean, and we gotta, we had what did we have? We had about a 3-year run where buyers had control.
Oh, at least. I mean, yeah, I think 5 probably.
Oh,
5.
yeah.
Yeah.
7?
7.
Yeah, I mean,
Was it 7
long
years?
time.
It's only about 3 really in Springfield. This probably isn't going to stop for a while. It seems to be so much driven by new construction, right? New construction kind of sends us into things and it pulls us back out. And new construction, at least Raleigh, can't catch up. And then you got the COVID thing with the supply chain and prices keep going up. Well, price of new construction go up, here comes everybody else up with it. Most important thing you can do in your career is to master a listing presentation. Scale of 1 to 10. How many of you feel like you're a 10 on listing presentation? Raise your hand. 9s? Any 9s in the room? 8s? 7s? 6s? 5s? 4s? How many of you get really stressed out when you go on a listing presentation? Okay. Are you that stressed when you work with buyers too? In this market? Yeah, probably. But not really, right? The thing about being a listing agent is you have to master the skill set in a normal market of delivering distasteful information to people on a regular basis without getting shot in the process. When you work with buyers, it's always a happy phone call. Not now, though. This whole thing is just 180 degrees, right? If your goal is 10 million, and Ken and I were having this discussion earlier, I don't believe, personally, that there is a correlation year over year in real estate sales between the amount of hours you work and the amount of money you make. I don't believe it to be true. That makes me kind of an outlier in this industry because there are people who are doing very, very well that have this thing down to 40, 45 hours a week. There are people who are struggling, who are working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, right? So there's not really a hardwired connection. It's just like, how good are you in the field? When I meet you, do you differentiate yourself? By the way, in today's market, today's world, if you don't differentiate yourself at initial contact, you probably won't get a second chance. The model we used to run was I'd get your name and number, and I'd get close to you over time, right? I'd send you listings, put you on a drip campaign. That does not work. That does not pull people closer to you. If you don't knock my socks off at initial contact, I will move on. I call it the scrolling society. We scroll on our phones all day long through Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and if something doesn't grab my attention immediately, what do we all do? Move on. It's now worked its way into just kind of how we live our lives. If you're average at this, you'd list 1 out of 3, you'd have to do 150 transactions if you're good. If you get to the mastery level, you could list them all. Mastery is a theoretical number. If you're hitting about 8 out of 10 in a competitive environment, that's about as close to mastery as you'll get. If the quest is for more money and less time, then listing presentations are the way to get there. And I used to talk to people, I won't today, I'll mention it, but rolling 10. You always need to be carrying at least 10 listings. Your life, I know. Your life changes. Your life changes when you always have at least 10 listings, right? You have a forecastable business. You have things going on. There's people calling and this, and I can move you from one listing to the other, and all of those things. And the average agent never gets to 10 listings, ever in their career.
What?
Huh?
They don't?
No.
Okay.
You would be, see, I have a different perspective. Yeah, the average agent, because you guys aren't average. I mean, this place is special, it always has been. Yeah, the average agent, you can ask people, and I do this, I get in big groups or whatever, raise your hand if you're carrying more than 10 listings. This is like 5 years ago when the market was just kind of normal. I was in Detroit specifically, and 300 people, and there was probably 10 hands that went up. I'm like, raise your hand if you've ever carried more than 10 listings. Maybe half the room will raise their hand. No, realtors we don't carry listing inventory because it's hard. And because it's distasteful conversations in most markets, and it's scary, and I don't want to call you and tell you why those people didn't like your house, and then have you blame me, and then ask when I'm going to hold it open, because I don't want to hold it open, but now I have to hold it open. Because if I don't hold it open, you're going to fire me, and I don't want you to fire me because I don't have another listing. I've lived in that way. Swear to God, oh my God, I tell so many stories about my first 4 years of real estate sales. I was horrible. It was sad how bad I was at this. And I just had to make a decision I was going to get good. I held houses open at the threat of a seller because I didn't like open houses. So I was holding houses that were already stale on the market, right? I never called my seller back and gave him any feedback from showings at all. I would list anything at any price because I had a fresh sign in my trunk. I always had signs in my trunk because they weren't anybody's yards, right? I would give you a valuation model that really wasn't a model at all. I would just say, well, what do you think? And they would go, and in my mind I had a price, right? I'm thinking like, it's like a great house at 120. Man, I need a listing. My wife's gonna make me quit if I don't figure this out. And I could probably go 130. I mean, it wouldn't be that much different. And God, I'd hate to miss it over 10 grand. I mean, I guess I could go 140. And I'd go 149.9. I think we can start at 149.9 and we'll see what happens. And I would do that in my head in like 3.2 seconds. And then it wouldn't sell. And then I wasn't calling my sellers on a regular basis, right? And then it became, I haven't talked to them in a while. Guess I ought to call them. Then I put the phone back down. Need a price reduction, don't know how to do that. All of these horrible realtor things. And it's where the vast majority of the industry still lives. Which creates a huge opportunity for people that want to get after it. Price is only an issue in the absence of value. Why should I hire you? This is the big question. Why should I hire you? Because I'm going to interview people other than just you this time. Why you? What do you do for me over and above? Why are you better? Take a couple minutes and write down why you're better. Be very specific. Why are you better? Why should I hire you? I'm inheriting a piece of property at the lake. I'm not really. But I'm inheriting a piece of property at the lake and I don't have any idea who to use, so I'm going to interview you all. Why should I hire you? What do you do for me? What do you guarantee me over and above? Okay, toss me a couple. Why should I hire you?
Communication.
Communication. So you have an exact communication protocol that if I hire you, you make certain guarantees to me on how often and in what manner we'll communicate. Correct? Okay. What else?
Marketing plan.
Marketing plan. A very specific marketing plan. It's different than everybody else's.
I think so.
Okay. No.
I added, my proven systems and processes.
We're going to the closing table and this is how we're gonna do it.
What was that? Going to the closing.
We're going to the
table and
closing
hiring.
table and this is how we're gonna get there.
Execution. Same thing, execution.
Right? Yes, Dan.
I always throw out that you're not only hiring me, you're hiring a team of full-time agents.
And for others of you in the room that are not on a team,
Better than you.
one of the biggest value propositions is you're an individual. Because a lot of times if you get on one of those teams, you never know who you're gonna talk to. It's really confusing. So if you hire me, you get me. That's just how you combat the whole team. Right? So all I would tell you is this. If you don't know why somebody ought to hire you, the public won't either. And you need to learn to be really specific. Right? Really specific. Specificity is the key in a competitive environment. Avoid big words. I learned this from Dennis Curtin. I learned the big word concept from Dennis Curtin one day in 2009. I'm regional director of RE/MAX, Mid-States. But in 2009, I was given the illustrious duty of working with all of our existing brokers in both regions. Which meant a lot of times, if I showed up in your city, it was not gonna be pretty. Because I was gonna probably have to shut you down. That's when the movie Up in the Air came out. Remember that? I was watching it with my daughter, and she leaned over to me, because it just so happened that a lot of the cities George Clooney went to were like in the region, and my daughter's like, is this what you do? I'm like, yeah, this is what I do. And Dennis comes walking to my office one day, and he goes, how you doing? And I'm like, fine. He goes, what's wrong? I go, everything. And Dennis goes, everything. I never will forget this. This is a classic learning moment. He goes, everything. Now there's a big word we can't do anything with, Wayne. Tamara and I talk all the time about big words. That's a really big word we can't do anything with. So let's get clear. And then once we get clear, we can have a strategy. Now what's wrong? I was like, dude, I'm just tired. He goes, well, there's another big word. Now, come on. So anyway, and it taught me that really, you throw out this big thing and you go, oh, I don't know what to do. And you have to go off by yourself and get clear and develop strategies, right? So a lot of people say, I'll communicate with you a lot and that's why you should hire me. Do you have pages or slides or whatever dedicated to your communication protocol if I hire you? What are the guarantees you will make me if I'm one of your sellers? Do you have a feedback guarantee? Do you have a cancellation guarantee? If I can fire you anytime I want to. If you don't have though, I will tell you a cancellation guarantee is probably the ultimate value proposition. Okay? And what's funny is, so many agents go, well, yeah, if they call and they're mad, I'll cancel. Well, do you tell them? Well, no, I don't want to bring that up. Get in front of it and call it a parade. You can fire me anytime you want to if I'm full of beans. If I made all this up and this level of service that I'm laying out to you today, if it's not there, you can fire me. I'll stand behind what I tell you. That's a huge value proposition in a competitive environment. Okay, so get very specific on the things that you do. Here's how I think this thing works, kind of the order that you go through. You have a pre-listing phone conversation, a pre-listing appointment. You go do some homework and figure out what this house is worth, or some semblance maybe of whatever. Confirm the listing appointment, start the conversation, cover their past experiences, tell them 1 of 3 things will happen, and cover important issues, ask them to hire you, prioritize their issues, cover win, lose, and mutual expectations. Then you tell them what it's worth. Then you cover a marketing plan, and you ask them to hire you. So it's relational, value, marketing. No amount of marketing will fix a bad price, and I know it's this environment, whatever. And a price will not fix you having to deal with a distasteful human being that you wish you had never met. And to me, that's the key. I think life is too short. I say this to people all the time. Life is too short for you to look at the phone and go, oh God, it's them. And I don't want to take this call. Just get away, seriously, just get away from them. It's okay, just get away from them, right? Selling real estate, guys, is a battle of processes. Either you get the client to buy into your process, or you end up in the middle of the client's process. And sometimes their process is distasteful to us, right? But if we don't have a process that we go through every single solitary time, then you will spend your life, and this is how I think realtors live, you'll spend your life bouncing off of everybody else's process. Scared, not living life the way you want to and all those things. I'm a very big process guy, probably because I'm a golfer. You always hear golfers, how'd you do today? Stayed in the process. I just stayed in the process, one shot at a time, right? Well, that is how you play golf. You have to expect to hit every shot perfectly. I feel this duty to work golf in because Jason said I was going to. You expect to hit every shot perfectly, and then you have to accept wherever it goes in golf. No reason to get mad. You sent it there. Go find it, hit it again. Now, I got a really good friend that played on tour, and he would get in pro-ams, and guys would get mad in these pro-ams, and he'd come up to me, he'd put his arm around me, and he'd go, hey, here's the deal. You ain't good enough to get mad. He said, I'm good enough, and I don't get mad. So there's a lesson in there. You have to expect everything to go perfectly, and then you have to accept wherever it goes. And the only way you can do that is to trust your process, right? So when you hit a bad shot in golf, what did you do? You just didn't follow your process. Like Lee Westwood on Sunday. Yeah. We predicted that one Saturday while we were playing gin. We're like, I don't know, he's going to fold up again. Right, you get hit shots a little quicker than you used to. You're not thinking quite right. A little pressure, raise the pressure up. Okay. Step number one, pre-listing. In some fashion, I think you got to do a pre-listing thing. You got to get information in people's hands at initial contact. Okay. Initial phone conversation. These things are still starting with phone conversations, correct? Right? The listing side still starts with a phone conversation. The buyer side doesn't necessarily start with a phone conversation. Okay? It might start with an email that we would probably quickly work into a phone conversation. I think those conversations should be handled exactly the same way every time, by form. Okay? It's a questionnaire. Now this says bright colored paper. You can print them off on bright colored paper. If you're a buyer's agent, okay, if you're working on a team as a buyer's agent, I would contend that you take this form and you also take a pre-listing or take a buyer questionnaire and you put them back to back and you laminate them. And you get a dry erase marker and you put them in your car. Okay? I listen to a lot of Zillow. I don't know how many people in here play the Zillow game, if any of you do. I listen to tons of Zillow calls every month with my clients. The bar is so low on conversion of Zillow leads, it's absolutely incredible. And there's these long, almost to a person, there's this long, awkward silence where the agent is trying to find the house that the people called about. And they don't say anything because they don't have a questionnaire in front of them. And then it gets to be weird. And what I know, because I have access to like 14 different Zillow accounts, this is what happens all across the country. That's why the average consumer interacts with 26 different realtors on 72 different pieces of property on Zillow, and 47% of all Zillow calls are never answered by anybody. So it's no wonder why these people get kind of short and rude when you're the 18th agent I've called that said, well, let me look. Dead air, dead air, dead air. Sorry, I'm pulling my car over, hang on. Dead air, dead air, right? Because there's no questionnaire. Just, if you don't get anything else out of the day, get a laminating machine, put those two deals together and watch what happens with your lead conversion. Because it goes way up. Dry erase marker, you can transfer it over to something permanent later. There's the questionnaire, okay? Basically, it's crib sheet questions to keep the conversation moving, all right? The key questions to me at this level are down in here, right? The first part is, just tell me about your house, and people will be like, oh, you know, we bought it back in '84 and whatever, stuff you don't really care about. What we really care about is, do you have a price in mind? I would go ahead and ask, I've always felt like you ask people that on the front end of these conversations, right? And if you have a price in mind, what would that price be? A lot of agents are like, oh, I don't want to ask that early. I'm like, why not? There's three answers to this question. Do you have a price in mind? Yep, I think it's worth this. Nope, I have no idea what it's worth. Yep, I got an idea, but I'm not going to tell you. And either way, you're fine, and it gives you some kind of insight into what's going on in their head. Because please understand that every time someone contacts you, we have a filter we run stuff through. We just do. And it's based on our past experiences, right? So don't be afraid to ask people questions. Ask anything. It doesn't matter. Are you going to be interviewing another realtor? I think you should ask that. And people are like, oh, I wouldn't want to introduce that to the conversation. If they're going to interview, they're going to interview whether you ask them or not. It's their process. It's just nice to know you're going to be competing against someone else. Because if you get to playing the game at a high level, which you guys do, and you know this, if you're competing, aren't you always competing against the same 3 or 4 people?
Usually.
Right?
Yeah.
Usually it's the same 3 or 4 people, and when you go up against those people enough, you start to figure out what the soft underbelly of their presentation is, and things that you can perhaps expose in your presentation, or a value proposition that you could add in and make sure you really slow down and drive home this particular point. Yes, sir?
So today, one of the common things that you hear that we're dealing with is, so the call comes in.
Yep.
The first question is, what do you charge? It's just a call.
Yep.
Yeah, I go in this condo in Ledges, I got your postcard. What do you charge? And so we talk a lot about how to deal with that. How would you deal with that?
Commissions are completely negotiable. When can I come out and talk to you? At the first level, everything's negotiable. That's exactly how that's come up a lot. I would say that to everybody. It's completely negotiable. When can we get together? Well, no, wait, what do you charge? No, please understand, it's completely negotiable. When can I come out? Would you like to have a meeting? By the way, are you going to be interviewing other, and I'm going right to the sheet, right? I got to get control of this conversation. At the very first level is not the time for us to be positioned. Well, I'm 6%, I will never negotiate. Oh, bull.
Right.
Come on. I will just make a comment, and you probably make somebody mad when I say this. These people that say, I never negotiate my fee. You'll buy a garage door opener every now and again. That's negotiating your fee in my world. Yes.
I just noticed on this that you do not ask them for an email address at all on your form.
I should fix that.
I mean, I was clarifying. Do you or do you not?
No. I just not on there.
I just thought it was interesting.
Could be. But I want to talk to you, right? I want to text you, right? I believe, honest to goodness, I believe email communication is the lowest level of communication.
I do too, and I just noticed it because I see and hear a lot of agents say, well, I'm going to shoot you an email. Don't do that.
See, and I think, honest to goodness, I think that's starting to shred our value proposition. It's easier, there's no doubt about that. It's easier just to email people stuff. I think we should try for conversations and end up back over here. Okay? How many of you, after you have this initial call, oh, and then I'm a 2-step guy, so I'm going to go ahead and set 2 appointments at once. The first appointment and then immediately the follow-up, try to build 24 hours in between. So you guys are having these conversations with people, right? How many of you send a quick video afterwards saying, I just wanted you to be able to put a name with a face, thank you so much, I look forward to meeting with you? Anybody? If you're not doing that, start doing that. I really believe that in the next 5 years, you will not be able to run a real estate office at scale without a videographer. I think that's where this industry is headed. I think that's where life is heading. Okay? So embrace video if you haven't already. Yes?
I have a question, because a lot of the, like, sellers I work with, since it's a second home market, I've got people that'll tell me the code to get into their condo or house before they even are down here to let me get in. So how do you kind of give more of a presentation over the phone if they really don't even want to see you in person before?
I would go for Zoom. I would go for a Zoom meeting. It's really interesting because I do this, this is the world that I now live in. Most people will gravitate towards Zoom rather than a phone call now. So it's like, okay, I've got your code, that's awesome. This is where you do need the email address, right?
Yep.
So let me email you a packet of information. I did not realize that was not on there. I will fix that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Big learning experience. I'll email you some information, okay, about me and the way that I work. How many of you are using like the really cool video player cards? Anybody? Hmm?
You're not talking about Bombo, you're talking
No,
about.
no. I'm talking about FedExing of a packet after you have the initial conversation that has perhaps your pre-listing packet. Now, how many of you have a pre-listing packet?
I mean,
Okay. Those of you without a pre-listing packet, if you're going up against somebody with a pre-listing packet and with a couple of the other things that I'm going to tell you about, and they get it in their hand quickly, it will hurt you. Okay? So one of the cool things, I have to go to another presentation to. You know what I'm talking about? The video cards?
no.
Yes, no, maybe
No.
so?
No.
You mind if we take a little vacation and go out and I'll show you one?
Okay.
Really quick, is that okay?
Yeah.
What, you don't call it that, Jeff, a little vacation?
I love that. I'm all about vacation. Hey, I'm not kidding about the what do you charge deal. If you're not excited about that question being asked, you need to be, because it's so prevalent. I hear it from agents all the time. So be excited about it. Have a plan, and be open. Be comfortable with how you're going to address it, and just make whatever your plan is yours, so that you know it ahead of time. You plan for them to ask. You know, you can even be fun with it.
My broker says I can't charge less than 6.
Click.
Click. See ya. Because the last 5 people I talked to said they listed for whatever. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you can even dare to broach the subject before they do. You know what? You haven't even asked me about commission.
So let me just tell you up front, commissions are completely negotiable. When can we get together?
That's the key. He's talking about getting in front of them. I love how short and sweet that is. I would maybe add something like, you know, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I'm going to charge you, because if I can sit down and show you, I'm going to show you how I'm going to put more money in your pocket. We're going to sell your home faster with more money in your pocket. So when can we meet? Let them know that it doesn't matter what you charge them. You're the person for that job. It has nothing to do with commission. It has everything to do with the value that you're going to present and what you're going to do for them.
And you got to get in front of them in some format, whether it's Zoom, whether it's face-to-face, however you can, you've got to bring the value.
Whatever fits your personality too. Just don't be afraid to say, I got to tell you, that's probably the most common question I hear is about commission. And I would love to tell you that commission's not negotiable, but it is.
Completely negotiable.
And then you go on into so you didn't kill your appointment before it started.
Then you get strong in your appointment.
Right.
Once they've been able to bond with you, once you've been able to show your value, that's when you get strong.
Then you
if
can
you're
challenge
too strong at first, If you just say.
And you build a wall.
By the way, we're 7, so.
You build a wall, right? All of a sudden,
On
you're-
7%, they're gonna hang up on you.
right?
What if they ask the question, I've got a friend, relative, brother who wants to buy it, I'm not sure I'm gonna list, cause I may let them buy it.
Hey, that's a
Basically,
great
let
question.
you do the marketing value for them so they go out with the
So
marketing.
Jeff, here's how, we just talked about this yesterday. I think a great way to handle that would be, so how good of a friend are they? You know, would you be willing to sell it to them for $30,000 less than what I can put in your pocket? And I don't know that I can, but I would love to be able to sit down with you and show you how, even if I'm gonna show you where to price it, but that's probably, there's a good chance it's gonna go much higher. If you just sell it to them, there's a good chance you're leaving $40,000 on the table.
And that comes at the right time in the process.
You're
So
right.
it's all about when that's laid out. If you have the right and the relationship, then you can go right to it. Maybe if you don't have it, you might say something that's a little bit more empathetic initially. You know what? That's common today too. In fact, lots of my clients get people that knock on their door today and want to buy their property. And the most important thing I can tell you, whether or not you decide to hire me, is slow down. Slow down, because you may be costing yourself lots and lots and lots of money. So it's no risk for you to sit down and talk to me and go through everything I have to do. This is what I do every day. What I do every day is understand how to expose property and create motivation and excitement, which drives the amount of money in your pocket. That's my job. And there's no guarantee. I mean, no commitment on your end. You can decide later whether I'm worth it or not, but let's go through the whole process. Does that sound fair? I mean, whatever you're gonna say, you gotta know what to say before they ask the question. And today, you gotta be really passionate. Can't be any stuttering. Can't be any, I charge, because you're done. You're dead.
Practice in a mirror smiling. Melly used to do that. Look at a mirror and smile. You feel different when you're smiling. You sound different to your clients when you're smiling, as opposed to, oh crap, I hope they don't ask me that. I hope they don't ask me that. Oh, they ask me. They feel that before they hear you.
That's one of the biggest differentiators between agents that I see. No matter, like Wayne says, it's not about the hours. Has nothing to do with the time. It has to do with the delivery and the confidence and the way that they approach things, the way they make people feel. That's huge. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I said this last time I was here, I think, but some of you weren't here last time, so I'll say it again. This is your chosen field to be elite, okay? This is no different than Michael Phelps in a pool, or Serena Williams on a tennis court, or Bill Gates in the computer world, or Steve Jobs, or Warren Buffett, or Tiger Woods, or anybody that or Ted Williams. It's no different than anybody you want to name. You've chosen this particular career path to be elite. And it follows the same rules as the elite athlete. They practice a heck of a lot more than they're actually on the playing field, right? I mean, Jason, how many hours of practice were there for the amount of actual activity in a game?
It was literally, we practiced an hour and a half to 2.5 every day, but then you throw it on the games last 3 hours. You spent 60 hours during the week doing film work, doing training,
So 60 hours for a 3-hour game, but you only play one side of the ball.
Right.
So now we're down to an hour and a half game, right?
Then you're in the huddle. You're really only out there about 15 minutes.
No.
Seriously. I mean, a play lasts about 6 seconds.
Yeah.
So you get about 70 snaps a game. So.
And the rest of it's all prep,
Unbelievable.
right? Now layer that model into what we do. Because to me, honest to goodness, to me, it's the same thing. And I'll throw golf in. In a round of golf, you don't have but like a minute and a half of actual physical activity in a 4-hour round of golf. Other than walking, right? I mean, it's not, Corey, you know, right? I mean, you get over it and it's like, okay, it's just gonna wait for me. Right? It's not gonna move. The ball like looks up at you and goes, go ahead, man, whenever you're ready, hit me. I'm ready. And all this crap goes through your head, right? And the only way that you get through that is you've done it so many times, it's muscle memory. Well, you gotta take your presentation skills to that level. You gotta look at your entire process from initial contact to the end. What can I do better? What can I leverage, right? What am I doing that would set me apart? So this is a client of mine, again, Carl Sanfilippo, one of my favorite people. I get to be with him next week. This is his recruiting stuff, right? So if you are gonna talk to Carl about possibly joining his company, as soon as he gets off the phone with you, within 24 hours, you will have a FedEx package at your home that has this Y Remax packet. It has a Starbucks gift card, it has a personal note from Carl, and it has this. Which you're not gonna be able to hear. So he sends that out to everybody, right? He has another one that he does, agents that he really wants. He has a separate video. If you couldn't hear what he said, it's basically like, you know, I look so forward to meeting with you at our appointment that's already set. Here's a book of benefits about joining RE/MAX. I can think you probably tell I'm not like the traditional broker. Look forward to meeting with you, whatever.
How do you see it?
Huh?
Is it in a?
So it's in, so this right here,
Yeah,
you just open it up.
like the cards that.
And when you open it up, he starts talking to you. Yeah.
Where do you get that from?
So if you go to Alibaba, China,
Yeah.
they're about 14 bucks a piece. You can get them for 14 bucks a piece if you buy them in like 100 of them. Okay? But you have to send them the video. They preload them all. Once you set it on that price point, you can't change it. They go all the way up to 40, 50 bucks a piece. They're totally customizable and all this stuff, right? But think about it this way. You've had that initial phone conversation with somebody, right? You've asked them the questions. That's already a different experience for them. They said, what do you charge? It's completely negotiable, right? And let me have your home address, right? If it's not the house that they live in. And immediately the next day, they get this FedEx package, and they open it up, and here's your pre-listing packet. Here's the video card in there. And all of a sudden, it's like, wow, this is different. This is not what I expected in a very good way. What Carl has discovered about doing this on the recruiting side, it makes appointments hold. He had an agent literally last week that when she came in, she goes, I just want you to know, I was gonna call and cancel. And then I got that packet. And I didn't feel like I could cancel. And she ended up joining this company, like $10 million producer, right? So it helps appointments hold, okay? It differentiates. And this whole game, guys, materials are huge. Materials build confidence, right? And materials differentiate you from the other people that I may be or may not be talking to, okay? Your process is why I'm gonna hire you. Your process is why I'm going to refer you on down the road. People refer processes, we don't refer people. I will use you if you're my really good friend, even if you're not good at this. Because it's just too awkward not to use you. You know what I mean? It's like, well, our kids play ball together, now I guess I gotta use them, but they're not very good. But I don't have to tell my friends to use you. And everybody wants to go to the referral side of the equation, right? 3 big buckets of business. There's advertising, there's active prospecting, and there's referral. If we're living realtor nirvana, it's all referrals. Just understand people refer processes. So always be working on your process, be practicing, be role playing. I know you hate to role play, I get it. But you gotta role play. You only hate to role play because realtors are mean to each other in role play. a break?
Yeah.
Okay, we're taking a break, 10:30.
Being his personal
The
assistant.
reason that you want material,
Material.
there's the 4 reasons you want material. All right? It definitely separates you from your competition if you are competing with someone, okay? And again, I would always tell you, just assume you're competing, okay? Even if it's a past client that you've sold 5 houses to, assume you are competing. You're competing against a Zillow valuation, or if they watch Fox News in the morning, they've seen the ad for Ideal Agent, which is 2%, right? That's why I think you're starting to see all of these, or starting to get more and more of these calls. People aren't stupid. They realize the market's really good. They think you make tens of thousands of dollars for very little effort. Can guys be honest? It's kind of true. I mean, really. I'm not diminishing what we make in this business, but I mean, you can make tens of thousands of dollars just like boom, and we shroud it in. But you don't understand how many people I work with and I never get paid. That ain't my problem. That's your problem. You should have a better process so you don't spend inordinate amounts of time with people who aren't going to pay you, right? But we make a tremendous amount of money for a little effort. Now, Jason's been doing some math over there. So to give you context of what we're talking about, this practicing thing, okay, hit him with the numbers. This is awesome.
So it ended up working out to 1 minute of game time for over 1,000 minutes of practice.
Oh.
Wow.
Every year.
Every year.
Yeah.
That's 16 games. And you only end up playing, it's actually only 7 minutes, so those guys are way overpaid. 6 seconds for 70 plays, you're really only playing 7 minutes. You're practicing close to 1,900 hours a year.
So in a 2-hour listing presentation,
You're having a car crash
you should theoretically, well, it takes 2 hours, sometimes it doesn't. No, too long?
What?
No, not with all the homework and everything.
What's
Mine's
the
a minimum of 2 hours.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
2 to 3.
Yeah.
How
If
much
it's
of
really
that-
good, I'm there for 4 or 5 hours.
I wonder how much of that practice is physical versus mindset.
Well, there you go. We could really run down this rabbit hole. That's 122,000 minutes of practice of a listing presentation. For a listing presentation takes 2 hours. If you had the same dedication and want to, have to, whatever, that a professional football player has, you'd have 122,000 minutes. That's 2,000 hours. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book that said it was 10,000 hours before you could master something. So, there you go. Practice, guys. Seriously, practice. It's your playing field to be elite, right? And by the way, to the question of how long should a listing presentation take? As long as it needs to. As long as it needs to. I mean, if you're a Mike Ferry follower, it's like in and out 30 minutes. Well, that'll work sometimes. A lot of times it won't. Jane, I'm like you. I'm like, I ain't getting up. I want your business. What do I got to do? What do I have to do to get your business? Because it's competitive, right? I know you're competing. I know you're interviewing people. This was the world I lived in. I remember Don Cottle. Some of you may remember Donnie. And he and I went up against each other one time. And I came back in with the listing. And he goes, how'd you get it? I said, I just didn't leave. I was there 4 hours. I said, Donnie, I knew that if I walk out the door, you probably had it, and I just decided I wasn't leaving. I pulled out every line, every script I'd ever learned. I even did the deal, let me just fill it out. Let me go ahead and fill it out while I'm here, and you can call me tomorrow, and I'll just tear it up. It's fine. You know, whatever, all those old sales lines we used to do. Leverages your time. So here's the dialogue. If you're gonna do the pre-listing, right? I still say in a competitive environment, you should do the pre-listing. As we tour your home, why don't you pretend I'm a buyer and show me around your house? Now you have your pre-listing packet with you, or you've FedExed it to them already, right? If you know you're not gonna get to do the 2-step thing, FedEx your pre-listing materials to them to get the appointment to hold. Set 2 appointments, right? Let me go back for a second. Set 2 appointments, right? Even if they're not going to give you the gate code, right? okay, can I have your home address? I have some information I'd like to send you. FedEx it to them. Okay? And then when they open it up, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Look at this video card they sent us, right? If you have the ability to meet the people, and understand it's a second home market as a general rule, right? But if you have the ability, here's the dialogue. Show me around your house and tell me what made you purchase this house over the other ones you consider. And if they're physically there, they will probably look at you and say, where do you want to start? And the answer is wherever you want to. They will tend to take you to their favorite room first. Nobody leads with like the stuff they don't like about their house. Right? They always take you to their favorite room first. The game is, if you're there with them, take tons of notes. In fact, I would tell you through this entire process, the pen is your friend. Take tons of notes on things people say. Your goal is to slow down the conversations you have with people. Okay? So as you're walking through their house, if you happen to be physically walking it through with them and they're showing you what they think are the value proposition, try to not comment on what they say. Try to just take tons of notes. Okay? If you're not taking notes and you're not commenting on what they say, now they think you don't care. Okay? But what we tend to do is we tend to embellish. Like we'll walk into the kitchen and go, oh, I love these countertops. These are beautiful countertops. Yeah, we just put those in. You know, they were however many thousands of dollars. Oh, those are beautiful. I love that. And immediately we're trying to, build rapport, as they say. And what's happening is the seller's going, oh, realtor likes that. Probably worth a lot more money, right? And then you go back and run your numbers and go, oh, wait a minute, those countertops just got up to the market, right? So try not to comment. Take lots of notes, nod your head a lot. Okay, great, take notes, flip it over on the back, take the piece of paper with you, take tons of notes. Through the whole process, take notes. Kayla, in recruiting, take notes. The more you take notes, the more you slow conversations down, the more people talk, okay? And it's not awkward at all as long as I'm nodding my head and I'm writing down everything you say, and you'll continue to talk. Thomas Jefferson said, nothing gives one person more control over the other than to remain cool and unruffled in all circumstances. Keep the conversation slow. As long as a conversation stays slow, you can't really have a big fight. Because all a fight is, if you think about it, is a conversation that's sped up. That's all it is, right? Conversations that speed up become disagreements. Disagreements that speed up become arguments. Arguments that speed up becomes fights, and fights that speed up become fist fights. You know how you just feel that? Have you ever been in a bar where a fight broke out? And like 5 to 8 seconds before it breaks out, you can just like feel the energy building for some reason, or hear some knucklehead popping off to some other knucklehead. And if one guy would have just gone, hey, man, no problem, right? Having said that, I've never been in a bar fight. I have proven I can take a punch. I've never been in a bar fight. It was a one-punch deal that I got into. And it really made me mad because it wasn't all that long ago. True story. I'm going to tell this on myself. So we have a deal in Springfield called Wild Turkey Wednesday, right? It started at a place called Galloway Grill in Springfield. And it was when all the college kids came back into town for Thanksgiving, and it's the night before Thanksgiving, it's Wednesday night. Galloway Grill starts this deal called Wild Turkey Wednesday. All the college kids would go and reconvene with all of their friends. Well, the guy that started was a guy named Pat Duran. Pat now owns Metropolitan Grill, if any of you have ever eaten at Metropolitan Grill. Pat's one of my best friends. My son's playing music on Wild Turkey Wednesday at Metropolitan Grill about 5 years ago. And we're just having a good time. Get ready to leave, I'm getting ready to go home. I've had a few cocktails. And I see my wife and my daughter at the front door, and my wife's giving it this stuff, and I go up and I go, what? What are you doing? She said, that lady was sitting right over there, got into my purse, got my phone, and started posting a bunch of stuff on Facebook.
Oh.
What?
Yeah, ooh. And I said, oh, okay, look, we've all had a little to drink. Let's just go home. The real me. Then my oldest daughter says, and she called me a snotty little bitch. And I said, and I'll be right back. I went over and I started having a conversation with the lady, which I let speed up. Admittedly, I let it speed up, or I sped it up, one of the two. Then her boyfriend said, "You need to pipe down," and I said, "No, you need to pipe down." And with that, he kind of went this way with the girlfriend and went this way to me, and I was sitting over here. Proved I could take a punch right here. It was kind of like starting a fight in the home team locker room. 3 cooks jumped, if you're familiar with Metropolitan Grill, they have like this open, 3 cooks jumped over the rail. 3 of my buddies had the guy on the ground and in the parking lot in like 4 seconds. And I was so embarrassed because I'm like, I've never been in a fight in my life. Because I haven't found, and people would say, "Have you ever been in a bar fight?" No, I haven't found anything worth fighting over. Till like somebody popped off about my daughter. So anyway, I don't know why I've been saying that. Don't let the conversation speed up. That's what I was going for.
Did you get the phone back?
Huh?
Did you get the phone
She didn't
back?
take the phone. When my wife went to the restroom, she got her phone out and started posting stuff on Facebook. And it was something like the shizzle something. And my daughter's like, "Mom, what are you doing? Post." She goes, "Oh my God, she's got my phone." Bottom line is, if I would have stayed calm and cool, as Thomas Jefferson taught me in my Thomas Jefferson quote, wouldn't have been in a fight.
I'm on your side.
What's that?
I think you did the right thing.
Some fights are justified.
It would have been better. I did do the right thing. I had to protect my daughter. When leaving the home, give them the pre-listing packet if you haven't already mailed it, right? Here's a packet of information that tells you more about me and the way I work. In the back of the questionnaire, please fill it out prior to the next meeting. There's also a disclosure statement. If you could fill that out as well, that would be great. Okay? Again, guys, if you're not using pre-listing packets, I would implore you to start. It ain't gonna hurt, okay? And it's gonna differentiate you in certain environments. And this game is all about differentiation. Here's the questions that are in the back. These are the basis for the entire conversation. It comes out of a book called Top Grading by Bradford Smart. It's a book of interview questions. It's a book that Jack Welch used to retool GE. If you're familiar with the story of Jack Welch and GE, Jack Welch, the rule at GE when Welch was there was you had to fire the bottom 10% of your people every year in every department. It was constant improvement. And it was these questions that he uncovered with this guy named Bradford Smart that led them to having fabulous interviews with people and making sure that they were hiring top talent. I took those questions years ago and rolled them. I'm like, these are great listing questions. These are great buyer questions. These are great recruiting questions. And that was how this presentation started. Smart's theory was, or is, that at the very beginning of a relationship, it's not about money, and when you're interviewing someone, it's not about a job description. It's like, do I even want to see you every day? Do we see the world the same way? When you're hiring an employee, right? Do we see the world the same way? If we see the world the same way, now let's talk about the job. Let me see if you're a fit for the job. Then let's talk money last. And it kind of flips the whole interview process on its head. Well, this kind of flips the whole listing process on its head. So here's the questions that are in the back of the book. We're going to go through them in detail here in a minute. Okay, there's 13 questions. Call back and confirm the appointment, right? In today's virtual world, and I think we're going to stay in this virtual world, guys. I really do. Interestingly, though, I was talking to a commercial realtor last week, and I said, "How you doing with office space?" He goes, "I got more people wanting office space than I have office space." He goes, "A year ago, everybody was saying production is not suffering." He goes, "Now they're going, oh yeah, it is, and we need to get everybody back under one roof where they can see each other and engage." So I find that interesting. Call back and confirm the appointment. Just make sure that the time you wrote down, if you're meeting with them face to face, is the time they wrote down. I'm sure it is in like 99% of the cases, but I personally, the only reason this slide is up here, I had it cost me a listing one time because I wrote down 1 o'clock and they wrote down 12 o'clock. And they called me at 12:45 and said, "We thought you were coming to meet us." I said, "I am. I'm just finishing up my lunch. I'll be there in 15 minutes. And he said, "Our appointment was at 12. I said, "Oh no, our appointment was at 1. He goes, no, it was at 12. I go, well, I can come on out, can't I? And he goes, no, you can't. Another guy listed it, and I ended up selling it because I had a buyer coming in. Cost me $9,000. So call back and confirm the appointment. Step 2, favorite part, the actual listing presentation. Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Someone in every listing presentation is going to be passionate about the price of the home. The problem is 95% of the time it's the seller, not the agent. In today's market, nobody's really passionate about it. It's like, let's get it out there and test and see what happens. But it doesn't change the relational conversation that I think you need to have with people. Remember that a seller only has to defend their turf with their emotions, nothing else. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be logical. Everything you say, I believe, has to be logical. You can't be the one bringing emotion to this table. Okay? Nobody wants to be told what to do. In life, no one really wants to ever be told what to do. Everyone wants to have input in decisions that affect them. You got to create an environment that welcomes questioning back and forth. Always allow a seller to question you on the statements that you make. But more importantly, always question the seller on the statements that they make. In other words, rather than you defending your position to them, make the seller defend their position to you. In other words, rather than reacting to what's your commission, say, one of the things that I always said to people when we got into the presentation, we're like, okay, this is all great. What's your fee? My fee is X. So-and-so will do it for this. Are you gonna base your entire decision on how cheaply you can get a realtor to work? And if the seller says yes, okay then, have a nice day, I'm done, right? Most of the time they wouldn't say yes. But it comes up, you want it coming up in the meeting when we're here, and you want it to be one of the very last things that we talk about. Just as in recruiting, right? One of the first things an agent wants to talk about is the fee structure. And it needs to be one of the last things that we talk about. One of the first things that sellers want to talk about in a listing presentation is, what do you charge? It needs to be the last thing that you talk about. Okay? You can't have a fee framing what you do to sell my home. So, and no, you haven't done all these things. I know this, right? You haven't previewed all the competition. At its highest level, you would. But we don't have time to do that now. So at least look at the pictures online so that if they have specific questions, you can talk in detail about competing properties. If you have all the information you need to have a high-level conversation, if you rehearsed your dialogue to handle objections, do you know your numbers? Is your information in a format that's seller-friendly? Do you have supplemental information? I'll go through all of it. I prefer, I don't know how you guys do this. I always preferred having them come to the office for a listing presentation. I would always try to go there, and then I would default back to your house. Or I would default in today's world, if we can't be face-to-face, let's go Zoom. I want to, honestly, I want to see your face while we talk about this stuff. And I think Zoom is awesome for that. If you're not, surely everybody's a Zoomer at this point, aren't we? It was sexy as hell a year ago. It was so cool. We're gonna do Zoom. Kind of like getting an email. An email used to be really cool also. Here's the dialogue. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you a question. Have you ever been through the process of selling a house before? Have you ever done this before? Or you might frame it differently if this is a repeat customer. Look, I know you've done this before, right? I know we worked together on that transaction, but good experiences are bad. Have the seller explain to you every experience that they can remember regarding selling a house. Have a buyer explain to you every experience they've had regarding buying a house. Good experiences or bad. What made them good? What made them bad? They will build your presentation for you if you will ask these questions. They will unveil the framework at what they're looking at. Everything that you now say at the end, when you start talking, this is the framework. We're trying to figure out what's going on in their head. Okay? So somebody, let's role play for a second. Somebody who's, and you can't be, not as a realtor you've sold houses, but like you've moved a few times in your life. Who wants to role play with me? I'll be the agent. You can be the seller. It's easy. Mel.
I'll play with you.
Okay. So Mel, thank you so much for letting me come in today. Before we get started, I got a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Mhm.
All right. Have you been through the process of selling a home before?
Yes,
How many times?
15.
15 times. And this is how a presentation can last like 3 hours. Right? Okay. You sold 15 homes.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Overall, now I got to customize, right?
Yeah.
So the game is memorize, internalize, and customize. Just like a football play, right? We know what the diagram says. I'm internalized what I'm supposed to do. Uh-oh, he just did something we didn't plan on. Now I got to go over here. Memorize, internalize, customize, right? Best experience you ever had? Tell me about that one.
A quick sale. The reason being, we have small children.
Okay.
It's hard to get the home ready for a showing.
Okay.
So I'm looking for good money, but more of the ease of the sale.
More of the ease of the sale, okay? Overall, good experiences selling properties or some harrowing experiences?
There's been some good, some bad,
Okay,
where they almost didn't want to close at the very end. They're
Okay.
almost out.
Okay.
So therefore, earnest money is pretty important to me.
okay.
I'm looking for non-refundable. I don't
Looking
want
for
to be in that
non-refundable
position
earnest money.
again.
Okay. The experiences you had that weren't great, what made them not great other than them not wanting to come to the closing? What else?
Communication
Communication with,
with the agent.
what happened?
They didn't inform us. They said the loan was going fine where it wasn't. I need truth and honesty up front. I can handle it, but I want to know.
Okay. Anything else stand out in your mind about these other 15 transactions or these other 12 or 13 transactions you did?
The other ones were good,
Okay.
smooth.
Was there any common theme of what made them good?
It was, again, the communication.
Okay.
We were on the same page with the agent.
Okay. So communication is one of the key things. Is that honest?
Honest, good, bad, otherwise. No, I was the agent, but yes. The other agent wasn't honest. Just tell me.
Interestingly enough, that's the answer they'll give you almost every time. Okay? And what I find fascinating about this is when you ask a seller what your good experiences were, they will almost to a person say, we did it really quickly and got really close to what we were asking. Right? And where this helps you is later on when they come up with the famous seller line of, I'm not in a hurry. Right? I'm not in a hurry. I don't have to sell this house. Like that's written on some frickin' Cellar Stone tablet somewhere. Right? And it's like, but wait a minute, you told me earlier that those are the experiences you enjoy. And then that lets me lay in when we get to the CMA and start showing you how the market works and how there is a direct correlation between list to sales price ratio and how small the number of days on market are. And that's really what we want to create for you because that's what you said you enjoyed last time, and all of a sudden it's a completely different game, right? So Mel, do you believe, you've been through this 15 times, that's a lot. Do you think selling a house is easy or hard?
Hard.
What makes it hard?
There's so many moving facets that go.
Yeah, was what's called going 3D, okay? This is a key concept of Smart's work in all these books that he wrote about interviewing people, is that you have to go 3 deep in a job interview. Now, what he referred to was, and this serves us well as if you're hiring people, is you have to go 3 deep in checking people's references. Most people don't check references. And if they check references, you call the people that are on the resume. Well, they're going to tell you how awesome this person is because it's their references. So Smart's theory was that you ask those people, hey, could you give me the name of somebody who might have worked with Mel in a different capacity? And then you call that person and you ask them about Mel. And then you go, hey, can you give me the name of someone who might have known Mel in a different capacity? And if there's any dirt, it'll be that person that'll tell it. Right? So you take that into this, and it's like, I need to be really clear on what you said. What we tend to do as realtors is we tend to lead the witness. Right? We tend to, people would say, what was important was I had a really fast sale. Oh, so you mean like 30 days. Well, if you understand people's personality styles, 3 out of 4 people will go, sure. Only Only the high D people will go, no, that's not what I meant, plugger. I meant 2 weeks. But 3 out of 4 people, three of the 4 behavior styles will not do that. They'll just go, no, sure, whatever. And all of a sudden, weirdly, we frame the whole presentation around a 30-day sale because that's what we said you should want because we're the expert. Stay out of all that crap. Just ask questions. Just ask questions. Get so into practicing asking questions. Role play this stuff constantly. Yeah, it'll shock you to where it's just internalized, right? Memorize, internalize, and customize. Write down answers exactly as they state them. After you write down the answer, look at it, study it, see what the next follow-up question is that you need to ask, so that you're crystal clear on what's going on. People will embrace that process. Well, Mel, anytime I sit down and talk to somebody about selling their house and having the chance to be the one that represents you, one of 3 things will happen when we're done. The first is that you hire me to represent you, and that'd be fabulous. The second is that you don't hire me, and you hire Jeff, that I know you're talking to later today. You don't really do the eye roll, do you? And the third thing is we may come across a need or expectation you have that I know I can't meet or exceed. And if that's the case, I'll tell you today. Is that fair enough?
That's fair.
Because isn't that really, if we're doing this at a high level, that is the only 3 things that can happen here. You choose me, you hire some other dullard you shouldn't have hired, or I decide I don't want to be around you anymore. And I will politely walk away. This is how I invented that word progressive, be polite yet aggressive. Allows you to politely tell people that you don't have to have this piece of business. Now I understand, guys, in the marketplace we're in, this gets customized, right? We need listing. We need inventory. Got to stay totally neutral. Always go 3 deep as you stay in the questions and print these questions off. Do not be afraid to walk in with questions and you take notes on them. I was, to show you how this can work, because this is the same strategy that I teach brokers on the recruiting side. I was talking to 2 guys last week in North Carolina. And they have the ability to get appointments. They're really great guys, but they can't get anybody to join their company. And I'm like, guy, we've only been working together about a month, and I'm like, man, we got, tell me what your pitch book is, right? What I call pitch book if you're a broker, right? It'd be your pre-listing packet or your listing packet. What's your pitch book? And they email it to me. He goes, but I don't ever really use it. And I said, well, let me look through it real quick. And I'm like, well, yeah, I can see why you don't really use this. It's not specific to you. It's very 5,000-foot viewish, right? And I said, so let me kind of walk you through some of these questions. And I'm sitting there, we're on Zoom, they're in North Carolina, and I'm writing it out. And I go, do you keep this conversation slow? Oh yeah, you bet, we do. We do, we're both there, and that's kind of dangerous when there's 2 of you there. And then I'd ask a question, and then I would just start writing down their answers. And then I would ask a follow-up question, or whatever it was. And Mark stopped me, and he goes, oh, we can stop right now. He goes, we don't do that. He goes, we give people time to answer, but he goes, then Brian always feels, it's his brother, he goes, then Brian always feels the need to start talking again. And he goes, I can see how this would be completely different than what we're doing. I go, yeah, dude, just start writing down, embrace the silence. And you're thinking, well, I said, while I'm writing, I'm trying to figure out what's the next best question I can ask you. Okay? I cannot overstate the importance of the power of a pen in these settings, because you want to keep this conversation slow. You don't want it to turn into this commission argument, right? Or this price argument or whatever. What's the most, Mel, this time, now you've been sucked into the role play. This time, what's the most important issue to you this time in selling your home?
This time?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now my kids are gone. I want the money.
What's wrong, Jeff?
I got time.
So the most important thing to you is the amount of money that you get.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an amount of money that you're targeting, that you're going for?
Yes.
What is that amount of money?
I wanna make an additional 100,000.
An additional 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So what would that sales price be that we would need to obtain for you to make an additional 100,000?
I need 400.
You need 400,000.
Mm-hmm.
When you say you need 400,000, does that mean you want to walk away with 400,000, or you're looking for a sales price of 400,000?
I need 4 in my pocket.
You need 4 in your pocket. Is there a loan on the property that would need to be paid off, or is it free and clear?
Yes, I owe half. So I owe
Half of
200.
4 or 500? Half a million? Which one?
Half of 400.
Half
so I
of
owe
400, so you owe
200.
200. So the most important thing to you is the amount of money that you, this time it is the amount of money, okay? You'd like to be able to make $100,000 over and above.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that is 400,000 in your pocket, so we would need to add the expenses of sale on top of the 400, right? We've got to pay off a loan of 200, so we're at 600 plus the expenses of sale, right? And let's see, so at 600, says 42. So we're looking neighborhood ballparkish at this point, right? You're thinking somewhere around the $650,000 sales price.
That'd be fair.
That'd
Can
be
the
okay?
market bear it?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. This is my box.
Okay.
No, seriously, that's how you have to look at this.
Yeah.
You have to look at this as this is my box now. These are my rules.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get there. Don't worry, we're gonna cover all this. We're gonna cover it in my time. Not yours, but thank you for asking. What's the next most important thing, Mel?
I want to make sure we are gonna close before I move my furniture.
What would need to happen for you to have that assuredness as you sit here today?
Either non-refundable earnest money given to me, or I want possession after closing.
Okay. So, one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter to you what the loan to value ratio is on the loan?
No.
So,
I
so
just
you're
want the money.
you're cool with a non-refundable earnest money check. If it's a 95% loan, you're still cool with that as long as it's non-refundable.
Yeah, I want a pre-approval. I
Okay.
need to keep talking to that lender to make sure it doesn't blow up.
Yeah, because you said that's what happened to you previously, right?
Right.
But they told you everything was cool and it wasn't.
Mhm.
We'll get into the communication, what you can expect me to do and all that here in a little while. But I guarantee you that won't happen. If it's going, if something like that were happening, you would know in real time.
Right.
Okay? How much of a non-refundable earnest money do you want?
Probably at least 10,000.
10,000?
Mm-hmm.
Who said?
Can I
Somebody
go
up
with
there
the
goes,
95?
I was gonna say, being a little aggressive there, sister.
Will you tell me if I can? You tell me. Can I do 10? Or is that unrealistic?
I don't know, let's keep talking.
Okay.
We'll get to that, we'll talk about that. Because I need to kind of figure that out in my head. So the most important thing is the sales price that we've kind of just ballparked at around $650. The second most important thing is you want to know that when you sign a contract, you don't want to move anything out until you know you're going to have a closing. So that's either going to be that you don't get a possession until after the closing, or you'd like to see at least a $10,000 earnest money check. What's that third thing that we could add to the transaction and just knock this out of the park where you would go, oh my gosh, I've done this 16 times, but that last one was unbelievable. What has to happen?
That we talk. The communication.
Communication.
Mm-hmm.
Let's write it up here. Optimally, what are you thinking as far as how often we communicate and in what manner?
Once a week.
Once a week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you prefer that to be just a phone call?
You can
What?
text me.
Can text you?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lie. She likes to talk on the phone. Isn't that true?
That is true.
I'm trying to keep my mouth shut.
He's
I'm trying to keep my mouth shut.
She wants to talk to you. She does not like to text.
Give yourself half an hour.
Yeah, but if you just update me, don't
So,
bother.
so all
That's
of a
one of the
sudden,
kids
it's
from
like
the other room
the
yelling.
sister comes in from the
Yeah,
bedroom. That's
that's
not
what I'm
true.
saying. That's not true.
Okay.
It's not true. I'm just telling you.
So the most important thing, Mel, is $650,000 sales price, kind of ballpark. We'll get into the details here in a little bit. You want to make sure that you're going to have a closing, and the way that you see, as you sit here today, that you think we're going to do that, we're going to have a $10,000 non-refundable paid to you earnest money check and/or possession after closing.
Yes.
And the next most important thing is that we communicate on a regular basis, you know what's going on. If I can show you a game plan where you're comfortable that these things are gonna happen, is there any reason you wouldn't hire me?
No. You be my guy.
Okay. Be sure you ask that question. Right down the end, this is where I start, oh, there you go. Okay, be sure you ask that question. If we've had the what do you charge conversation, this is where it's gonna come up. It's like, well, that depends on what you're gonna charge. Okay, what are you thinking? Well, I'm not gonna pay anybody more than 4%, all in, total. Okay, are you gonna base your decision on what realtor you choose based on how cheaply you can get them to work? Yes. That's it, 4%. All in, done, you're done at 4%. Right? What would you guys do?
Well, in this case,
Oh, I'd play.
I
I'd play a
do.
little more.
I play with them, cause we do have them
Meaning,
here.
so let me put this in so we're talking about a $650,000 asset, right? I mean,
Well, theoretically.
That's what we define.
In Mel's mind, it's $650.
$650,000 asset, you're right, and guessing, that's probably not your only asset. But it's likely one of the bigger ones, right?
For like 90% of the population.
So it's a very important thing to you.
Correct.
Where we end up, just as you explained, the money that gets into your pocket net after everything's done, right? Similar to other important decisions in your life, like let's just say major surgery. Would you decide the surgeon that you use based on which one was the least expensive? I'm here to tell you that you can get anybody to list that property. You have a beautiful home. You and I know that. I've already admitted that commission is negotiable, but I think you don't want the cheapest. I feel like right now you want someone who defends their position, who talks your talk, who will fight hard for you, just like they fight for their own income. Does any of that resound? I think at that point in the conversation, you gotta play. You gotta be excited about playing. You gotta anticipate it. Lots of these people, I mean, I felt like she was a D seller for sure, hard, knows her deal, but that's what we deal with down here. How many times have you guys been in that room where they are driving the conversation?
And you understand why, right? Business owner. They're used to telling people what to do on a regular basis. When you get up into higher sales prices, I think you guys can validate this, I hope you can. You have one of two types of people when you're at the sales prices that you guys deal with. The people either go, look, I have no idea what y'all do. I just know what I do in my business, so knock it out, go for it. Or you have the people who, without saying it, say, by the way, I tell everybody what to do regularly in my business, and I'm gonna tell you how to do this as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, there's like no in between, it seemed like for me, when I got into sales price. The path I might go down, although I like that path, I might say, well, hold on now. If you get this, does it matter how much you pay?
That's what I would go with.
That's where I would probably go, just so I'm clear, but does it matter? And by the way, you realize I haven't told you you can get this yet. I haven't said anything. I'm just trying to keep digging what the heck's going on. this point, you're looking for an option they haven't shared with you yet. Yeah, well, I'm gonna try it myself first. Yep, that's how we've always done this. I forgot to tell you that part. We always start on our own. And then, okay, well, so that's like, that's a hard line. You are gonna do this on your own. Yep, I am. Okay. Well, good luck. That would be me. But again, you can customize based on the marketplace, right? The goal is to allow them to self-discover what a working relationship with you would be. Now, what I would say to you is this, is once I get a little bit deep into this, I'm swinging for the fences. You've now earned the right to get my whole presentation. So, can we change gears for a second, Mel? What do you expect out of the agent you hire? I know you said communication, because that was your number 3 deal, right?
Mm-hmm. I expect you to get the price so I can get that.
You expect me to get the price.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
For you to market it and to get the buyers to get me the $650. If those are the numbers.
So you expect me to market the property to get the buyers in?
Yes.
Okay, anything else you expect from the agent you choose?
Well, I want qualified buyers. I just don't want everybody running through my house.
So you only want qualified buyers?
Yes.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. What could I expect from you?
I'll have a clean house and I'll be ready when you call me.
Okay. That is hands down the number 1 answer from every seller. I'll keep it clean and I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Right? Hey Mel, how's somebody win with you? I mean, if we were working together and you choose to hire me, what's the one thing I better make sure I always do no matter what?
Communicate with me, and like Susan said, call me. I want to hear your voice.
How do I lose with you? What's the one thing I better make sure I never do?
If you're not honest with me, good, bad, or otherwise, give it to me.
How do you prefer to communicate? I know you said earlier text, but now you said you wanted me to call you once a week. So, I'll go whatever methodology you want.
Well, if you call me and I don't answer you and I text you back, I'm busy. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
It's the effort I'm looking for. And if it's something important, you drill down and you get a hold of me. If it's falling apart, anyhow you have to get to me, I want you to get to me.
Okay. So you want me to call you? Right? Look, I'm totally confused now. Honestly, I'm not playing. I'm really confused. So you want me to call you, right? And if you don't answer, that means you're busy. So then what do you want me to do?
Text me. It's more important if something's going wrong, that you
Okay.
get a hold of me.
If something's going wrong, how about we do this? Okay? How about we have a code?
Okay, that'd be
Okay.
fun.
So if it's something that I really need to talk to you about, right?
Yeah,
I'll call you 3 times in a row.
okay.
Okay? If I call you 3 times in a row, it means I really need to talk to you as fast as you can get to it. Is that cool?
That's cool.
Okay? So maybe you do something like that. I always had it rule with my kids, right? The kid's in the middle of a presentation. If my phone rang 3 times and it was my kid, y'all can wait. And my kids knew the rule. Yes?
I just add to that, just kind of what Susan did to her. Sellers are liars whenever they tell you. When they say, just email me once a week, just email me. They don't really mean that. They want you to call them. If in this market, we don't have to worry about it as much because things are happening fast, but in a little slower market, make sure you're calling them every week, giving them an update, even if they say they don't want, because they really do.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Even if you just have to leave them a message.
Right.
Communication is, and I learned this calling expires. I mean, a lot of what I've learned about this business was calling it. And my classic story, I had this couple, I'd sold them the house, I go through the first part, we'd like to be able to get our money back, go through the second part, like being Kansas City, 45 days, whatever it was. We go to the third part, and the wife says, I'd like a really nice family to buy our house. Some of you have heard this story before. It did happen. And the husband goes, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard anybody say. And she went off. I'm sure that's the case. You don't know any of the neighbors. You get up in the morning and you go to work and then you come home and I've decorated this house, my kids, I know their kids, all this stuff. I want a really nice family to buy mine. And I got it and he didn't. And he goes, that's still the stupidest damn thing I've heard anybody say. And she went for round 2. And I had just started using this theory. This was like one of my first presentations doing it this way. And I was like, oh man, this was not in Bradford's. I just left. I was like, y'all need to sort this out. And then I waited for the conversation. I was doing them in the office, and I just walked out in the hallway and listened. And they died down. I walked back in, and I go, okay, are we good? He's like, yep, we're good. I said, okay, what's that third thing? And he goes, we want a really nice family. The reason I bring that up, and because it is a key point in this to me, there is a concept called triangulation. Okay, it's how they use it's 2 points, and where they intersect, that's where you fire the missile. 3 is a really bad number. Okay, if you have kids, you understand this, right? When they have kids spend the night, have 1 kid spend the night. You can have 3 kids spend the night. You can't have 2 kids spend the night, because by the end of the night, somebody's crying because they got triangulated. Okay. The importance of this dialogue is to make sure that both of the sellers are on the same page. Because if they're not, you're gonna get shot. If you take one side over the other, you're gonna get shot. And the other thing is, if you focus in on the decision maker, those are the presentations that end with, let us think about it. Said by the decision maker, protecting the non-quote-unquote decision maker who didn't say anything in the entire presentation because they weren't comfortable, and they don't talk till you're gone. And that's when they go, well, I don't like what they said there. And okay, honey, we'll go find somebody else. And this was driven home to me by a very successful agent who said, I want to talk to you about my listing presentation. He said, I talk about me, the team, and then the marketing plan. I'm going to switch it. It's going to be the team, me, then the marketing plan. What do you think? I go, it's the same crap in a different order, John. It doesn't matter. You're a huge producer. You never come to these stupid training classes I teach. But if you did, it's game over for everybody else. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, it's a series of questions. But you don't need it. You're a shooter, man. Come on. He's like, I've missed out on 5 in a row. What are these questions? I said, well, there's 13 of them. I'll give you one. What's the most important thing to you in the sale of your house? Just ask that one. And if you ever ask it and they answer it, let me know how it comes out. He comes back in like a week later and he goes, all right, where's the other 12? And I go, what happened? And he goes, well, this guy was transferred with Kraft. We have a huge Kraft plant in Springfield. And he said, I went through the deal and they said, let us think about it. I got back out of my car, I was getting ready to leave. They called me back on my cell phone and said, come back in and list our house. He said, so I asked him why. And this was, to me, a great learning experience. The gentleman that was transferred with Kraft looked at Don and he said, you are the first agent. He said, I've been transferred 14, 15 times, whatever it was. You are the very first real estate agent that ever asked us what was important to us about the sale of this house. And then the wife goes, but that's not why you're back. Don said, well, why am I back? She said, you're the first person that's ever talked to me. Nobody talks to me. They talk to him because he's the transferee. I'm the one dealing with this. He's leaving. And she goes, and that's why you're back. I think there's a huge learning thing in there, right? If you got one person dominating this conversation, engage that other person. First communication with that. Scale of 1 to 10, Mel. How honest you want me to be with you?
10.
People don't always say 10. They'll say somewhere between 7 and 10.
This is Mel's favorite line, by the way.
What's that?
This, right here, on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest do you want me to be? I've heard her say it a million times.
It works like everywhere in life. With kids. It's just a great question. Scale of 1 to 10.
Well, if they tell me 8, I go, why not 10?
I was just saying, well, what's an 8?
Oh, you say, what's the name?
I say, what's an 8? Just so I know, what's an 8? And what they almost always say is, I want you to be honest, but I want you to be nice. which for me, being a high D individual, I'm like, ooh, I'm kind of running over you right now, aren't I? Right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be polite. This is true. Every relationship breaks down over a lack of having this conversation with people. Marriages, right? If I'd have known this is how you really were, I wouldn't have married you. Employer-employee. Well, it is, right? It's like, oh, now I see how you are. Employer-employee, realtor-client, whatever, right? Expectation dialogue doesn't just happen. That's what we just went through, is expectation dialogue. Expectations of the transaction, expectations of our relationship with each other. I asked you what you expected of me and what I expect from you. I have my own list. You all ought to have a list. There's a list. You can use my list, you can have another list, I don't care. But you have a list. Every person in this room has a list in your head. You have a list of things you think people can expect from you. You have a list of things you don't think people have the right to expect from you. Tell them. It'll match up every time. I guarantee you it'll match up. If you follow this little bouncing ball, you'll have all the answers already printed out, which blows them away. Because this is what every seller says. I don't know about you, but I think our list matches up. It always will. Would you agree? Yeah. I would love to represent you. I still haven't told you what your house is worth. This can take 30 to 45 minutes. This is just relational. Every relationship breaks down over a lack of doing this. Right? The space that we work in is the disparity between the reality of where someone is and where they're trying to go. It's the space I work in with clients, right? The disparity between where a brokerage is and where you have in your mind, the business model of your mind. It's the space that you guys work in with the owner, that the ownership works in with you guys. The disparity between where you are in your business and in your mind, where you want it to go. I think we all have the perfect business model in our mind. When you're dealing with a client, it's the disparity between where they currently are and where they aspire to live. That's the space that we deal in. That's where the relations happen. Pricing. Let's talk about the value of your home, Mel.
Okay.
All right? Anytime we look at the value of a home, there's certain parameters within which people buy homes. There are certain things they're looking for. The reality is they're looking for the same things you were looking for when you bought this one. Here's the parameters I use. You're probably already doing this. I don't know, but I would have a sheet that tells you exactly how I just ran my CMA. Every house that I'm about to show you is lakefront. Every house that I'm about to show you is on this particular part of the lake, if that's how buyers look at this. In other words, use criteria that we know buyers use to search, right? And spell it all out. And these are houses just like yours. To me, at the baseline level, every house is equal. Okay? Think back to when you first have the conversation with a buyer, what do they say? Because those are the criteria you need to put in, because that's where people start. They buy at the second level, but they search at level 1. Does that make sense? The emotions don't kick in until later. The seller, though, wants to come at you with all the emotional things that are the reason they bought it. That's awesome, but the search starts monetarily, physical features, location. The extras that you have done to your house, the really cool stuff, doesn't kick in until we get them in. Okay? So here's the thing, and this is when people will go, yeah, but we've got this, that, or the other, and we're going to talk about that, because you're right, you do. And this is where I want you to have planned your dialogue for those specific things. Do they really bring value or do they not? And if they don't bring value, how are you going to let the seller down easy on things like that? Or the classics are, like your house smells like cat pee, right? How do you politely tell someone their house smells like cat pee? Dialogue for everything. Would you agree that your house is just like yours? At the baseline level, Mel, would you agree this is your house?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the most crucial part. We like each other. We want a date. Key numbers and correlations. List price to sales price ratio and percentage. Average days on market, bedrooms, baths, competing homes, sold, actives, and expires. If there's any disagreements on price, go back to the original set of questions. But Mel, you said this was what you wanted to try to create. This price creates that scenario. All right? This is my take on how you present price to people. And I know that this market is different. Okay? But I still think it's important that you show that this is what people have been willing to pay. Then here's the properties that are currently under contract. We don't know what the sales price is on these. Here's people that tried to sell their house and couldn't get it done. And if someone calls today, here's what we're competing against. And then you summarize all of that. Okay? And I'll walk you through this. After you present the summary, just be quiet. Let them react to it. Agents are famous for putting a price out there and then immediately taking it back. Just put it out there, let it simmer, let it marinate. Kind of like COVID. You gotta let it marinate before you go have a test. Just put it out there, let it marinate for a little while. Okay? I'm a fan of just an Excel spreadsheet to present price. Now you got all the pictures, you got all the detail sheets and all that, but this helps give a seller context. Now these prices are not in line with obviously the role play, right? So I would show them the original price that people were asking for properties, the asking price when it sold and what it sold for. I want to make sure that I'm showing you that there's very little negotiation that goes on in this gig. Make a big point out of that, regardless of market. Even in 08 and 09, the houses that sold, there was very little negotiation that went on. Buyers just had a lot more options to look. Average days on market is 46. Average list to sales price ratio is 99%. Okay, these numbers are what these numbers are. The conversation that I might back up is based solely on your answers to my first set of questions. If you would have said, I got plenty of time, I'm not in a hurry here. Okay, well, just understand that here's how long it took to sell these houses. The most it took was 92 days.
124.
Oh, I'm sorry, 124. There's normally a correlation between how close together these two numbers are and how small this one is. Now, this is an odd one, and this is why I think you need to rehearse this and really study these numbers before you sit down with the seller. So that the seller goes, well, what about this one? It was 249. Well, what we can pretty well bet happened is they dropped it to 239 and they sold it really quickly once they got it in the right price bracket.
You want to be quick to point out outliers?
Yeah. You got an outlier for me?
No.
Okay. Yeah, you need to rehearse, when you walk into this presentation, you need to have scoured these numbers and be ready for wherever the seller decides to try to take the conversation. Then here's the properties that are under contract. There's 3 of those, and they sold they went under contract an average of 30 days. Again, I would frame this in the context of what the answers were to the previous question. So we have 3 houses under contract, we have 7, so we have 10 that have gone under contract and or closed in however long the time frame was you laid out. So we either have a very vibrant market or, hey, the marketplace isn't that strong, right? That's still what you'll probably see if you get into acreages and suburban type properties. You see elongated market time, right? Then here's people that tried to sell their houses and couldn't get it done. These were people that were on the market, and the correlation that I would always try to go for here is, here's how long they were on the market. So if you roll the clock back 180 days, like these people on Sunrise, they were on the market at 259. But if we go back 180 days, all of these people got their houses in and out of the market while that person sat there. See, there's a difference between being on the market and being in the market, right? And we want to make sure, one of the reasons that you should hire a realtor is to put you in control of the transaction. That's why I'm here, is to try to help you get control. Okay? And then I would look at everything strictly from an average standpoint. Right? Now again, this doesn't fit with our role play. I should have coached you during the break, right? We've had 7 homes that have sold, it's 236. 5 for sale, average asking price is 249. 3 of them expired at 268. And what I would tell you is the methodology by which you run these numbers should never vary. You should do your numbers the same way every time. The dialogue will change. Because in this market, it'd be like, okay, so there's the numbers. Here's the deal. I can't sit here today and tell you we can't get you X. We're going to know really quickly, right? Here's the break points that we want to look for in this deal. And I think in today's market, and I'll show you the page in a second, but I would contend you run your numbers the same way every time, and you run them in detail, and you're so prepared for wherever this conversation goes. And that's the challenge that the average agent has, is they don't know, they're not confident in their numbers. So they throw things out. And they never shoot low, right?
What was the one thing you said? I'm here to help you stay in control?
I'm here to help you get in control and stay in control.
Get in control.
Real estate's all about control. I mean, it really is. Somebody's always, think about it, somebody's always got the upper hand in a real estate transaction. I mean, appraisers will tell you ready, willing, and able buyer, ready, willing, and able seller. What a bunch of funk. Somebody's got control. My job is to have strategies to put you in control. As a seller, you have 5 control levers. Market time, price, condition, ease of showing, and terms. Those are the 5 ways a seller can get in control of a real estate transaction. A buyer only has 2 ways of getting in control of a transaction. Condition and price, or condition and time on market. Price is not, weirdly, a leverage point for a buyer. Condition of the property and their biggest leverage point is how long it's been on the market. You are not getting bidding wars 180 days into this thing, right? And I think that's where it gets stressful for us right now. It's stressful both ways. If we do our job right, we got bidding wars, and that's stressful. We screw this up, we don't have bidding wars, and boy, that's really stressful, right? But our job is to put people in control, to have strategies to put our clients in control. If a seller has 5 control levers and a buyer has 2, who's in control of most real estate transactions? Sellers. So it will take much longer for buyers to get back in control of this if they ever do. We saw this in 2008 and 9. Buyers had control for just a little while, and then once it shifted, man, remember that? I think maybe I was up here talking to you guys. Once it shifted, it went fast. It was just because rates dropped. Closing, there's no big closing lines. I'd love to work with you. I'd welcome the chance, whatever. I mean, we can get into, if we have this disagreement on price, right? I'm a big price bracket theory guy. I think you know that. I think if you're pricing the right bracket, you're gonna get the right group of buyers in. Buyers don't care once they hit the bracket, they don't. At that first level, it's bracket that puts them there. They buy on emotions, okay? So as long as we're getting the right group of buyers through, then we're fine. And I'll tell a story on myself. We got a new greenskeeper at my club, and the old greenskeeper's like, will you help me sell my house? I'm like, Eddie, don't do this. But I'll be honest with you, I'm going, how hard can this be, right? Now I know why agents that don't do this a lot are really stressed out all the time. Because I got really stressed out. Because I listed it and then we didn't have 18 offers the first day like I thought we were gonna have. Got it done, mainly because of communication. I'm like, Eddie, we gotta drop the price. My fault, sorry, I overpriced it. Told you I don't do this very often. I messed it up, I'm so sorry. As I've just finished teaching you a class on this. But I said, dude, we gotta adjust now. And he's like, no, I think, I'm like, Eddie, we have had traffic, we have had 12 showings. 4 of those people bought something else. We are not in the game. We gotta drop the price. And so we did, and then we got multiple offers, right? Got it in a different bracket, got multiple offers, here we go. Any reason not to go ahead, whatever. No amount of marketing will fix a bad price. No amount of marketing will fix a bad price. Never has, never will. No good price will fix you having to talk to distasteful individuals on a regular basis. Now we got marketing plan. this should be in everybody's listing presentation. Because this really plays out right now in this market. This was actually the decision tree that I walked him down on reducing his price. I'm like, look, if we put your house, especially in this market, you put it out there and nobody comes through, oh, we got a problem. We put it out there and people come through, but nobody comes back, we got a problem. Nobody makes an offer, we have a problem. This old 30-day price reduction, all that, no, sometimes it's like a 3-day price reduction. We had 40 people through your house and they all went somewhere else. We have a problem. The market's rejecting us. We got to do something, right? So we always have to be one of the top 2 or 3. And this was exactly what played out in my annual listing. Was all of a sudden when we dropped the price, now we're in the game. Because until you're one of the top 2 or 3 houses with a group of buyers, you ain't getting this thing sold. Because they're all looking for the same thing, right? What one buyer likes, they all like. What one buyer dislikes, they all dislike. Because they're all looking at the same inventory of property. You know, we used to tell sellers you're gonna get 8 to 10 showings the first 2 weeks. Now it's like 8 to 10 showings in the first 2
minutes.
Hours, right? And so communication always is the key, right? I mean, that is the key to this whole thing, is keeping people in the flow. Yes, ma'am? You probably had your hand up for like an hour.
Seriously, it'll come back.
Yes, ma'am.
You've gone through all of this and they say, you know, I don't need to sell it.
I don't what?
I don't need to sell it anyway.
Okay.
I'm dealing with that. And I know when I have this conversation, I'm going to get, I don't need to sell it anyway.
You mean we have their house listed?
Yes. Yes.
We have the house listed. We've had traffic.
And I'm the second listing agent.
Okay, we've had traffic. You're the second listing agent. People have come through. Nobody's tried to buy it.
Correct.
Okay?
Even when I call back and say, would they make us an offer based on what they think it's worth?
No.
I'm talking to buyer's agents.
And they don't. And that's the weirdness of the market now. Used to, and we're going back in time, way back in time, right? People would make you offers. I'll give you this much for it. People don't do that anymore. And I think that's because it's such a payment-driven thing, right? So the conversation you got to have with the seller, like, look, here's the feedback. Nobody's buying it. Marketplace is talking. The question is, are we going to listen? What do you want to do? And the answer is, I don't want to sell it. If it's only worth that, I'm not going to sell it.
Right, it's, you know, these are people that are pushing 80, and they see oodles of value in their home, and it's there in the construction. I just don't know if anybody's gonna think it's worth it to them. You know, the sellers have a value because it's worth it to them.
The emotional side of this.
Well, that's the way it's constructed, but,
How's it constructed?
It's a fort. This house is just so overbuilt. And he owned the company from which it's built.
Of course he did.
So he thinks it's just super duper.
Absolutely.
Tons of value there. To rebuild it would cost $3 million.
Of course it would.
It is, but
So what makes it so special? Why is it such a fort? What's the deal?
The exterior walls are 14 inches thick.
Okay, here's the challenge.
And don't call it a brick something.
Don't call it a brick veneer.
masonry.
No, don't you dare call this a brick veneer.
Right.
It's a fort.
That is not.
Not a brick
So-
veneer.
And he owned the company, you know, from which this thing was built.
Right.
So these products, so he's got he sees tons of value in it, but.
Yeah. So when did he tell you?
No,
I was there. I
No,
folded
he did
like
not.
a. I folded up like a soldier. In this market, I said, we'll try it.
Okay, hang on.
2.1? Sure.
Hang on. When did this guy bring up the fact that this thing is built like a fort and this is not a brick veneer, and don't you dare call this a brick veneer?
When I went on the original listing,
Exactly.
they chose somebody else,
Okay?
then they called me back.
Then they called you
And
back.
that's when I took Jason.
Still a Ford, right? So what would the gentleman have said if you had said, look, I get it. It's a Ford. The problem is, we don't have buyers calling us saying, only show me houses with 14-inch thick walls. It's not a criteria people use, I'm sorry.
This is when you get to be almost 80, I assume that, I'm not there yet, but when you get to that point, you're hanging on to your legacy. And I think that's what I'm dealing with here. There's just tons of emotion and tons of personal stuff in there. And that's what I'm saying. So we've gotten to this point, and I don't know how I don't know. I don't know.
We've had showings.
Mhm.
How many showings have we had?
They had 4 with the other agent and 1 with me.
So we've had 5 showings in how long?
6 months total,
5 showings in 6 months. What's the price point?
2.1.
2.1. How many properties at 1.5 to 2.5 have sold in the last 6 months?
In that area, none. In the entire lake area, quite a few.
Okay. So there is a market at around 2.1. It's not like we've reached this point where nobody's buying $2 million houses.
That's correct, sir.
They're just not buying ours. What do y'all want to do? I'm sorry. My life would be a lot, I use this line a lot. My life would be a lot easier if everybody's house was worth what they thought it was. I'm sorry. What do you want to do? I mean, seriously, what do you want to do?
These are the questions that we have to, so years ago, or 5, 6, 7 years ago, you may not take that listing if it's way overpriced.
Right.
You know it's way overpriced, but in this market, you're taking that listing. I hope you are. I mean, it would have to be a ridiculous amount not to be able to take a listing in this market because of the buyer leads it creates.
Because of chum off the back of a fishing boat.
Because you just don't know, especially in the upper tier, you just don't know. You've just got to get.
But you do know.
No, you don't. Not in this market. I
You really
promise
don't?
You don't. Not here.
Okay.
People, this is a want, not a need. It's not like Springfield. It's a want, not a need. But you've got to be able to go back and sharpen your skills of what we used to teach in getting those price reductions. And we're just a little bit out of practice. We're just a little bit, and that's what I love about real estate, is that it's so learning based. It's not like, hey, I've got it figured out. I've got what I'm gonna say, and I'm killing it. Because right now we're having these kind of conversations. 6, 7 years ago, you wouldn't even. The conversation was, I'd much rather you be disappointed with me now than 6 months from now. And you'd walk away, and then you get the second listing. But now,
10 years ago, it was like, I am so sorry. It isn't, in this market, it is not worth near that. I wouldn't even put my house on the market today if I didn't have to sell it. Why as a seller would you even participate in this market if you don't have to move? Seriously, I mean, I was telling people to say that to people. It's like, well, I want to sell my house. Don't do it now. You're not gonna, this is a bloodbath right now. Don't do it. But I found that, and I've had agents tell me, I would never tell someone I'm sorry. I tell people I'm sorry all the time. I'm really sorry. Your house isn't worth what you thought it was. I'm so sorry. I just can't fix it. What do you want to do? And what's their answer to that question? What do you want to do?
They're in control.
Seriously, I mean, to me, it's like, what do you want to do? I'm doing all I can. That's where we used to get into the, what do you want to put a clown suit on and wave them in,
Well, and even if, like with Karen, 'cause I've got another one like that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back with your 3 levels to homes and then have a little come to Jesus meeting. But I don't wanna lose it, because if anything, I know it's a lost leader. I'm getting good leads off it. And I have no problem, I think I might even say, what do you wanna do? I'm happy to keep it, if that's where you want, but we're not getting the offers. I mean, we can still stay out there, but we're at a crossroads, cause if you're not getting anything from it, I'm not either.
And you know what? Maybe you try this on them. This is, and they'll either get it or they'll fire you. But it's like, please understand one thing about this business. This is good for me. I have the ability to get leads off of your listing. The problem is the marketplace is rejecting your house. I'm sorry. right? This is why agents will tell you your house is worth more than it actually is, because they use it like chum off the back of a fishing boat to attract clients. And in a normal market, I would go, and I'm not gonna do that. People do that all the time. That's why they tell you, so-and-so told me I could get this. I'm sure they did. But let me tell you why they do that. Because they want to use your house like chum off the back of a fishing boat to attract leads. I'm not going to do it to you. Because while you're sitting here cleaning your house, going through this arduous process that is selling homes, you don't have a chance.
I liken that to the tougher conversations. Sometimes you need to take that away. If you need them too much, they are not going to listen at all. If you can't be completely level with them, you have lost respect. You have to challenge them sometimes, which could mean that you're not going to work with them anymore. They're going to decide to do something else. But that takeaway is so powerful, and I think there's no doubt that in some of the tougher situations, that's what you go to, in whatever method you decide to do it. But there has to be you have to take it away from them.
Well, and this goes back to also to what I said earlier, was rather than you defending your turf, get them to defend their turf.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So help me again. We're not getting the traction that we should be getting here. It's good for me. I'm getting calls, but we're not. 5 showings in 6 months is not what the deal is, by the way. And make the numbers perform how you need them to. They may not be spending $2 million in that particular location, but there's obviously $2 million buyers, because while we've been sitting here, I don't know what the number would be, 10, 15, whatever the number is, this many houses have sold. So it's always either condition or price, right? It's not location, we can't pick it up and move it. Like, this is a hot area, let's plop the house down over here. To me, that's always been one of the big lies in real estate, location. You can't pick them up and move them around. Location's a constant. We got price and condition. We either upgrade the condition, or we have to get it in front of a different group of buyers, and I'm sorry. I really am. I don't know what you want me to do. It's good for me. I'll keep the listing, no problem. But what do y'all want to do? If I'm right, not saying I am right, but if I am right, what will you do? What's plan B? Try that dialogue.
Hopefully they say, well, what price do you think we should be at?
Right.
And then you gotta repeat your same conversation you already had with them that they
to
ignored.
me, I think there's great power in being confident enough in the listing presentation to have these conversations with them, because price reductions, they're brutal, I think, because it's basically calling you and going, I failed. I either wasn't honest with you, or I didn't run my numbers right or something, because you hired me to put you in control and I just totally blew it. And I'm sorry. And then price reductions, I was like, I'm really sorry, man. I blew it. You hired me to tell you what it was worth, and I am so sorry. What do you want to do? I learned that with a lady named Maybelle Pickett back in the day. Overpriced her house. My dad had built it. She bought it from my dad. Your dad was so wonderful. I'm like, oh, Miss Pickett, this is so great. I list her house. We get nothing. I called her one day and I said, Miss Pickett, I used to have price reduction Tuesdays. Right, when nothing was selling, I'm like, give me all the files. Somebody's going down. And I just start calling everybody, talking about their biweekly reports, which I think is a key component of it, talking about their feedback. And I got to Miss Pickett, and I'm like, Miss Pickett, I need to come out and talk to you. I said, I've got something I need to talk to you about. I said, I'm really sorry. And so I went out. She goes, can we do it over the phone? I said, no, ma'am. I said, I need to come talk to you face to face. I said, when I listed your house, I really messed up. I said, I'm really sorry. I said, I don't know if it's because my dad built it, or because you bought it from my dad, or because my grandpa developed the subject, whatever. I lost sight of the bigger picture. Here's what's going on. I said, I've overpriced your house. And she goes, well, now, honey, it can't be that bad. I'm like, no, Miss Pickett, it's bad. I did, because I was like, look, you guys, unless you're totally like, You ever lay awake at night thinking about these listings you have and how you like internalize the fact these suckers haven't sold? That's where I was with Miss Pickett. And I said, Miss Pickett, I messed it up bad. She goes, how bad? I said, we're priced at $89.9. She goes, yeah, and I go, 20 grand bad. She goes, well, honey, at my age, 20 grand really isn't gonna matter. What do we need to do? I said, we need to drop it down to, whatever, 69.9. Sold it in like 2 days, right? If these people are 80, it ain't gonna matter. I mean,
That's a tough reality though, that you cannot keep your home anymore, and so add that layer.
Sounds like a lot.
well, who's making them sell it?
Oh, it is.
Who's making them sell their house?
They know they need to, but to wrap your head around the fact that that's where you are in life stuff.
Yeah, I had that moment this week. Did you think of your question?
Separation
Did you think of your question?
It had something to do with that when I lost it.
It
It had something to do with not dropping the price and them being stubborn about it. Oh, I think I know what it was. I do.
Okay.
I sat at a condo listing presentation, gave them all the comps, not in detail like you did, but the father sat there and told me that we were gonna list it for $235, even though the market was $195.
Okay.
And we don't care because we have all the time.
Right.
And I said, what if I brought you an offer of 200? Well, we wouldn't take it.
Okay.
And I came back to the office, I think I called Jane. This is the first time I ever really loved saying, I'm not the person for you.
Mhm.
And I, don't know if I did that right, but they ended up going with Matt Shrimp, and he told me later, you're so lucky you didn't get that listing. They were so hard to deal with, but they got exactly where I told them it would be. And I don't know if,
What the problem we have, I'm sorry, you done?
No, because what should I have done? Should I have said, okay, we'll take it? I didn't wanna waste her money. I didn't wanna waste her money.
But that was a different market.
Oh, that was 2 years ago.
Today, take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, take it, because they're selling. But part of the problem that we have here is that you'll pull up information, okay, I wanna see, houses between 3,500 square feet and 4,500 square feet that sold in the last year. And they come in anywhere from $200 a square foot to $350 a square foot. Yeah. Where do you wanna be? You know, it's like trying to dial that in, you know, and
Yeah, I am not a fan of price per square foot.
I'm not either.
I mean, I think it's the worst way to value property ever. Cause it like starts at the front door and can be completely different. And yet that's where a lot of sellers wanna dial in, because that's how a lot of agents try to price things, is price per square foot. Very easy to calculate, very hard to justify.
So, but you get a house that's got a whole lot of square footage, of course, the larger the house, the lower the price per square foot typically.
Right.
But, people see that and they base it on the square footage, whereas topography, view, steps, age, condition, all those other things also play into it. It's a weird market here. It's like.
Jane, I'll be honest with you, it's weird everywhere. We're almost into this market now or we are into this market, I think. If your house is okay, it's nice, it might as well be trashed. Because people tend to only be buying the things that have been completely redone. At least that's the Springfield market. Yeah? Well, see, yours is different because you have people with cash.
Yeah.
I swear to God, you go to Springfield, not that you would want to, but you go to Springfield and it's like, you gotta redo your house before you put it on the market. Because all these things are 95% loans, so you're insulated from those things. Yeah, to me, it's just do your homework. Like, do a higher level of homework than you have, and practice before you go into the presentation. If they say this, what are you gonna say? And role play that with somebody. I used to do that all the time, right? With my sister, who was my assistant. I'm like, all right, here's where this is headed. I can tell based on my pre-listing appointment, they're thinking this, I'm thinking this. What if I said that? And she's like, oh God, don't say that. That's awful. I'm like, okay, well, what if I said this? She goes, no, that's better, right? And so role play when things don't go as expected. so that we're armed and ready. And if you have a good enough, strong enough front end conversation, you can kind of get a sense of where this thing's headed. Like to the question of, you think selling a house is easy or hard? I had a guy look at me one time and he goes, I think it's easy for you. Well, I knew immediately we were going to have a commission conversation before this was over, right? And so it tells you what to expect. If you stay in the process and you do it the same way every time, those of us that whatever your process is, as long as you do it the same way every time, you do start to feel patterns to this thing. And I'm a golfer. I mean, it's just like stay in the process, right? You had something you were going to say, I think.
Oh.
Other than probably like Wayne, we're done.
I get passionate. No, I get passionate, but go ahead.
I think this should be in there as well. Anytime you list a house, there's 4 things you're trying to do. Number 1 is to get as many qualified people into the house as possible. And I would make a promise to a seller, I will never show your house to someone that's not qualified. I can't make that promise for the industry, because we do discover that a lot of people are showing property to buyers that aren't qualified. But I promise you, I will not interrupt your time, make you leave, put the dogs up, all that stuff with someone that's not qualified. Where this helps you is when you get a call on a listing and somebody's like, I want to see it. Okay, well, you know, you're paying cash or getting a loan. If you're being pre-approved, no, I just want to see it. Because those people are still out there, I think. I just want to see it. I just want to see it. I can't show it to you. Why not? I promised my seller I wouldn't show it to anyone that wasn't qualified. And I'm sorry, you haven't shown me that you're qualified. Well, I'll get somebody else to show it to me. I'm sure you will. Not a problem. Highest dollar value with the least amount of problems. You put your house on the market, this is a hassle. Your life, if I'm doing my job right, your life is completely interrupted, hopefully for a short period of time. Third, to communicate the results of my activities to you. You said that was a big thing for you, Mel. I'm going to show you the protocol on how we're going to communicate, guaranteed, and look for the best ways of exposing your property. That's the marketing that I do. Whatever marketing you all decide to do. Right? Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. It's yours. Just be sure that when you tell me what your marketing plan is, you can explain it to me, and I go, wow, now that makes sense. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, postcards, whatever it is, you got to be able to go, now that is the deal. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think you ought to give them a feedback guarantee. And I don't think it's showing time where they go online. I think you should call them and talk to them. And we won't get into a deep discussion about this, but I think this is one of the ways that you can make sure that you're always in communication with those sellers. Okay? Some kind of a feedback guarantee. There's nothing magical about 48 hours. It can be 72 hours. Just make sure it's something you can actually do. And sometimes it means you're going to call them and say, hey, the agent never called me back. I wasn't able to get the information. That normally means they didn't have a buyer. Let's move on. But I would tell them in the listing presentation, I'm going to call you quite a few times and say, we never heard from the other agent. I think you should give them a bi-weekly report every 2 weeks. Okay? So like with your $2 million people, right? If you were sending them a report every 2 weeks that said, here's the number of properties that are now on them, that are currently listed that we're competing against, right? So if I'm a buyer today, and I want to spend, you're at 2.1, is it a whole different group of buyers if we go under 200,000? I mean, under 2 million?
I'm hoping so, that's where I'd like to be.
Okay, so I would do the biweekly report at like 1.75 to 2.25, and I would be sending them this every 2 weeks. There's 5 houses on the market right now. There's this, there's that. And in the listing presentation, what I always told people was, if you get a report that says there were no sales, don't worry, we didn't miss anybody. But if you get a report that says 4 houses went under contract and we weren't one of them, we need to talk. Because the only people that care whether your house sells or not are me and you. The market could care less if your house sells. The agents bringing buyers in could care less if their buyer buys your house. Like Joe Biden, the way I'm leaning in here. Nobody, right? Because the agent just wants to sell the buyer a house. The buyer doesn't care how much you have in your house. It doesn't matter to them. It's you and me against the world. So we gotta work together, and the only way that our relationship will ever go south is if we stop talking to each other. So I will, Mel, give you all of the information in real time. Please don't shoot the messenger. I'm gonna tell you exactly what these people said about your house. And then we need to work together to make the adjustments that the marketplace tells us we need to make. And at any time, if you decide that you don't wanna play anymore, I get it. And you can fire me. And to me, that's the most powerful thing you can say in a listing presentation. To me, it gets exponentially harder to have these big conversations with people the longer we've been going through this. Because then it becomes, well, I don't know that you've done enough marketing, and I don't like my pictures on Zillow, and when are we gonna hold it open again? And how about a postcard campaign? And one of my friends said, right, all that crap. So you got it covered on the front end. There's the cancellation guarantee. And I'm done. There you go. All right, did I go over time? Oh, I did, sorry, fine. Any questions?
No, that's great.
Memorize, internalize, and customize.
Okay, I got